Good morning and happy May Day. Were you a May Day kid?
No,
You guys didn't do that?
no,
Little baskets or whatever?
no. I think we did. I never understood it.
I don't either.
But when you're the youngest of 5 and you have a neighborhood full of kids like we did, we just did the darn thing.
That's what we did. Leave little baskets and then like basically ding dong ditch your friends.
Yeah, I don't remember doing baskets. I think we did styrofoam cups.
Oh yeah. That's
It's probably evolved. I mean, you were what, 14 years later, probably. So it's like,
somewhere in the neighborhood.
I used a flip phone. You were pulling out Sully or at your Apple deals.
Listen, I had a flip phone. Don't get me wrong.
Did you?
I remember my very first camera phone. It was a big deal, but it was still a flip phone.
I think like early 2000s, because I remember I was at my house on Curtis Ave.
No big deal.
It was like a Samsung 60 or something. It was a little brown phone you just opened. I was like, and that was early 2000s.
Yeah, the Motorola Razor was like a big deal
Oh,
when we were in high school.
Razor.
It was like a big deal.
Razor laser.
That's
totally on me.
But of course, like everything else in high school, I couldn't have like the nice version of stuff. I had to have like the next version of stuff.
I was talking to a lady in the grocery store, older lady, looked a lot like me, except she was a lady. And
it's good clarification there.
we were just talking about how things that we used to eat because we didn't have a lot of extra,
Yeah.
like are now things now.
Like what?
Well, she happened to be looking at oxtails,
Oh, okay.
but like oxtails, neck bones, turkey wings, marrow.
Marrow is like a thing.
It's like
The rest of those I could pass on.
we're just like we like, huh? I guess the one that you could probably relate to if you bought it was, for a while, tilapia was like cheap.
Yeah. And then the people decided it was.
And it's not even like a great quality fish. It's just like an alternative. But like, it's just funny how
The one for me?
the bubbly water that I buy from Hy-Vee.
Yeah.
When I first started buying it, this is probably 0203 maybe.
Yeah.
Was 70 cents. Yesterday it was $1.40.
The one that
That's a double, in case you were good at
that's
math.
200%.
Shane, how's my math this morning? Pretty good.
The one that gets me the most is that's a different thing, Shane. The one that gets me the most is not food; it's a brand that
Champion.
Yep.
Yeah.
'Cause I used to get Champion stuff because we couldn't afford the Nike stuff.
Oh yeah.
And so we go to Walmart or Target or whoever had Champion stuff.
I remember a couple years ago, Mike asked for a Champion sweatshirt for Christmas, and when
Did you
I
like
looked,
double take?
I was like, in my head, I was like, oh man, sweet, not Nike, not Adidas.
Then you saw the price.
And I was like, shoot, why not Nike? Why not Adidas? I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
It's flipping extortion.
Speaking of Nike and Adidas, a couple of Nike school and Adidas school played some baseball last night.
Yes, they did. And
it was, it was kind of a day full of.
Did it mean more to Creighton?
Of shocking things that I thought happened in the sports world. Shocking. Number one, Creighton beat Nebraska in baseball. Stunned. It's never happened before.
Is that 5 or 6 midweek losses? Well, just to keep you on the straight now, we're going to get a couple of perspectives today.
We are.
I'm not just going to be all in on your Creighton slant.
I'm not. It's not a slant. It's the truth. They won again.
Shocker.
I'm stunned by it.
Shocker.
I'm stunned by the fact that
you and Silk.
I'm stunned by the fact that Dion and Shadou are stepping in it again. I'm absolutely blown away by this.
That story though was a big fat nothing burger though. It was pretty dumb.
It wasn't probably necessary.
There was nothing in it.
It didn't tell me anything I didn't already know.
Well, listen.
Honestly.
Yeah, enough people leave your program. People are going to be disgruntled. If you have a player that was asked to leave the program that doesn't leave the program and he feels like he's an afterthought, water's wet, man. Like, these people are funny. Like, there are reasons to pile on. Others, like, just keep it pushing.
Yeah.
That thing wet.
Just keep it. I had to deal with a couple idiots on Twitter yesterday, so I was in a little bit of a foul mood. But coming off of dealing with a moron on Friday night, it was just like, can I just and I like, full disclosure, I understand this. Like, people typically follow me because they want information.
Yeah.
Right. You want to know something, or maybe see me.
Maybe you're really into like shark videos.
Draw like a 4-year-old and maybe do a play or something because I don't have a pen for my phone, and I draw with my finger or whatever.
I'm
right.
just there for the great white videos.
But I don't know. Dude, they allegedly found a 21-footer the other day. And I'm like, they're basing it on the boat size. But anyway.
People love the long shots.
Like, I hate this is totally my personality, right? Mm-hmm. I'm like, we let people off the hook because we make excuses for what it is. We're like, oh, that's just blank. And we don't ever want anybody to get any better, right? Mm-hmm. We got into this a little bit with like fans in the spring game and fans and overreacting,
like voters in basketball.
Yeah,
the selection committee,
and,
or most outstanding player voters.
And I'm like, why come? How come people just like how come individually we don't have to be better, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, full disclosure, I'm supposed to, I guess, disseminate information. Sometimes. Like a lot of times it is exactly what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Like if you don't know, you can either ask, but don't assume and then tell me you know.
I
well,
don't know.
Well, I took the dots like to me. Hey man, I can't help that. Like I'm not talking to you. I was talking to Will. Like he knows. Mm-hmm. They said, hey, if you know, you know. There's like just yesterday. What? There was nothing confusing about that. There's nothing. Like it is actual factual. Whether it was, Micah Pouts and I let it go because I'm afraid that, he's lived in his brother's shadow so long that I let him do what it could be anything, right?
Yeah,
could be relationship, could be business, could be athletics. Oh man, it was, and I'm like, is that what I meant? Like who you Freud now? Like where do people get the nerve? That's what I want to know. Like where does the gall come from? Is it just because it's like this free for all open market? And I get it, right? You're gonna say, oh man, it's social media. That's what you get. But we don't have to be better.
No, I mean we should be better.
We just got to expect idiots.
I think we should expect idiots.
I got you.
Still try and get better. Is that fair? Can we do both?
But don't make up stuff because you want me to confirm what you think. I said what I said. Like it doesn't. I'm not like I don't have to confirm what you think. Yeah. Because you want it to be something doesn't mean I have to be like, oh, okay. Well, I'd love to confirm. What do you call it? Your proof of
concept.
Yeah.
Let's give some context here to what we're talking about. So. Let's rewind it all the way back
to the disaster.
No.
Oh, to yesterday.
Yeah, to yesterday.
Oh.
So I think this is where the two.
And I don't even want to get into that. If you're going there, like,
okay.
Well, I mean, you can, but he clarified it.
That's fair, but this is where it started.
You're talking about with them wanting to make that
people wanting to make your tweet about something.
Oh,
else.
yeah. That's bad timing. I should have waited an hour.
I mean,
I should have gone an hour after, an hour before,
and that's fair, right?
Yeah, probably an hour before.
The big issue, people got in a tizzy. They got all worked up because Malachi Coleman tweeted a image that just said "trust in new beginnings." Okay, so people start losing their minds a little bit. They start freaking out. They go, "Is he?" Is he staying? Is he getting in the portal? What's happening here? A couple hours later, Malachi clears it up. He says, I have no intention of entering the portal. I'm only speaking about the future of Nebraska football, whatever.
Which unto itself, you could make, like, if you wanted to say, you know what? If Shane goes, Ravi, that's sad he had to go there. And you'd have to at least entertain that. But if you said, Shane, when you're high profile and you say that,
you have to understand.
You have to understand that that's gonna. So I get it. That's basically in essence what I'm saying. Yeah. Right. Like.
But both things can be true at the same time, right? Like it could be true that it's sad
that's cool, but the difference between what he said and what I said, like
his was ambiguous.
Yeah, mine was not. No. You people wanted it to be about. And I kept getting attached to it, and I was like, okay, I get it. let's just not. You could take that individual thing and you could put it
anywhere.
Bill could put it on his. Well, he's got like Fortune 500 stuff, but if he takes that other stuff down, he could like put that. He could put that on his wall, or you could put it. And you could put it in your little girl's room. You could put it in your parents' room. You could put it in your locker room.
Put it right next to your Live, Laugh, Love poster.
Like I just.
And this is.
I can't stand.
If people aren't aware, your tweet said, when we enable intentional drama because we're afraid to say the quiet part out loud, we share some burden at the end of the day for the results. It really doesn't matter if it's social, academic, athletic, or business. It's life 101.
Yeah. You ever been in a relationship? You ever been in a relationship and you have some toxic behaviors and you know it? And they get so out of hand because nobody says anything to you. Mm-hmm. And then it's over and they're like, man, I told you, she always, right? Like, okay, cool. Right. Cause you know, I hate that, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's a pet peeve of mine when people see the train wreck coming and they sit idly by and then afterwards they act like they tried.
Yeah.
That's a pet peeve mm-hmm. because you see so many things ruined, whether it's parenting is a big one. Like it happens in parenting quite a bit. And
so I thought of coaching when I first read that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
When I first read it, I heard, okay, what you allow is what you endorse.
Yeah, right.
That's what I heard.
That's pretty good. That's good.
If
you're not coaching it, you're allowing
it, right? Yeah. So like, it doesn't matter if you intentionally teach it. If you allow it, you are coaching it, right?
So we can rest assured it can be. It is what it is. Like the statement is an isolated incident,
and
right?
Because of the timing, people thought it was about the Malachi stuff.
How early or late was I? Was I?
You were about an hour after. You were right in between the two Malachi tweets. So you were an hour after the first one, Trust in New Beginnings. You were an hour before the clarification.
Yeah,
tweet.
Vastly
so
different. Vastly different than whatever it was. And it's like, I told somebody. Oh yeah, I know. I was talking to like. Could have been a girlfriend, could have been homework, could have been change of class, like
anything.
I just
could have been, hey, spring practice is over, on to summer workouts.
Yeah, I those are just those times where I wish I like cussed, like because I'm telling you, man,
you're steaming Willie Beeman.
Yeah, because I just hate when people like you're not right this time.
Yeah, well, and
it don't make.
So here's the commonality.
Hi, Alex.
Here's the commonality between the two. Is
one is very specific, one is not.
Yeah, so that's what's different between the two. I think the line people will draw is, okay, if you're a high profile person, like Malachi in that situation, maybe you think through a little bit more actively about, hey, this is how this might come off. Now, it's still on the recipient to a certain degree to be better, to not jump to conclusions, to not make assumptions. That's where the commonality is. It's about people jumping to conclusions and making assumptions. Under pressure?
Under pressure.
Big David Bowie guy?
No.
He's got some good songs.
I think I like Shane. What is it when you Shane? I'm no longer sane. What is it when you take somebody else sample? Yeah. Didn't somebody do a sample of that I like?
Oh, probably. I mean, he's been sampled a lot though, like on a lot of his songs.
I think it's Ice Ice Baby. I think it's Vanilla Ice.
Oh, okay.
Is the most famous one. Yeah. But there's also
did he have to pay
so that was kind of in
royalty.
I think that might be why he's bankrupt now, is because he didn't originally, and then
it wasn't because
they came back and got it,
hung him over the ledge, and all his money fell out of his pockets.
May have been a little like PTSD, didn't want to work so much anymore. I get that, but
I wonder if that's true.
It seems to.
I think Van Winkle tells it as though it's true, right?
Yeah, people seem to think it's
true.
That's
fine.
That's his name, right?
But it's Van day full of shocking developments. Creighton beat Nebraska.
Maxie.
That was not shocking.
That was very shocking.
I mean, in the playoffs, it was shocking. He's like gone off a few times. It's not totally out of character.
I'm talking about if you're Knicks playing with a lead.
Oh yes, I thought you meant just Max's performance. I was like, that's not that shocking.
No,
the Knicks. Also, the Knicks tinkling it down their leg, not that shocking either.
The Leafs.
The Leafs?
Is that shocking? That is very shocking.
I don't know. I can't speak to that.
Hey, Boston may be in trouble now.
I don't have.
That's not shocking to me.
I don't have the frame of reference. on that one.
There are two. Again, I know you were at Warhorse all day. You went to Lincoln and then you double dipped and went to Omaha yesterday. Two futures outside of the Florida Panthers.
The Panthers that you like.
The Preds and the Leafs to win the series.
Their individual series, not the Stanley Cup, because you like the Panthers on the Stanley Cup.
Just the individual series.
Let's see what number that I got on that Panthers Stanley Cup odds.
I know my man Steve. He's Bruin Steve. He's a great dude.
I got plus 500
on the
Panthers.
Yeah, that's low. I was talking to Husker X's and O's yesterday, and it was still 700.
Yeah. It's coming down in a hurry. People are, that bet I placed at Warhorse probably moved.
$20 moved the line? Good on you.
When's the last time anybody bet $20? Never mind.
Good on you.
Gonna move on here.
No big deal.
It's no big deal.
No big deal.
As the man DB said, we've got a good show coming up for you here today.
I'm looking for more surprises.
Coming up at you didn't want to talk about.
Yes, I did. I wanted Shane. I'm buying Shane time to play surprise. But
were you?
Of course, he's not on the same planet we are.
Well, I haven't put it in yet. I'm sorry.
No, I gave it to you 3 days ago. Usually your day of.
That's totally on
It's
me.
on permanent delay. Remember?
Surprise.
Were you surprised at the Carolina series?
No, but gosh, they got some fortuitous things happen.
Well, I'm
the Isles, I'm probably a little salty.
Yeah,
that series coming up with the Rangers and Carolina's going to be bonkers.
Yeah, I kind of like the Lakers leading for 75% of that series and getting the gentleman's sweep put on them.
Yeah,
it just, I guess over time it is what it is. It just seems like some weird things happened. Right? It seemed like weird things happened to Carolina.
Yeah, but if the weird things happen 4 out of 5 times,
I know that's what I'm saying. It debunks the kind of the. So I wouldn't be as those yellow pants are killing me. It wouldn't be as I wouldn't
that's
say,
aggressive.
Man, sunspot
hard to pull off.
There's a little black spot on the sun today. Doesn't have anything to do with her being African American.
Something.
Is that Sting? That's Sting, right?
That's Sting, yeah.
Sometimes he says the police. I don't know if it's the police or if it's
I think
Sting.
it's the police.
Well, you were a big fat goose egg yesterday when it came to music. So am I riding with you or are you back on the saddle? What's up?
I think it's
you pulling another Alan Parsons project on us.
I think it's
there you go, piling on.
I think it's off of Synchronicity, the album.
Is that the police?
Yeah. Okay. Synchronicity is the album it's off of, I believe.
What other surprises, considering that sandwich looks amazing?
It's pretty good. That's, again, not a surprise. And then, just...
this smells delish.
Shedeur being a chip off the old block.
So...
I can't help myself.
Can I just ask you something real quick?
Yeah.
Real quick about the Dion thing?
Yeah.
Does any of this stuff come up at next year's draft time?
Oh, it 100% does.
Because for as much as we raked Caleb Williams over the coals,
being a little different
for
painting his fingernails,
a midriff and neutral nails, like is this a thing? Because I wonder if they know, or are you just so convinced it doesn't matter? You're going to do what you want to do.
So there's two. I think there's two.
Because you don't appear, at least how other people would look at it, as being a good teammate.
No, it doesn't at all. And here's the problem that I had with Shedeur specifically yesterday, right? So his tweet, we're a lot on the X this morning. Just
Ian, you didn't like Ian?
Well, I
ain't even know.
I don't even know. It took me a minute to figure out.
I can do the dialect. You cannot.
Yeah, that's fair. We need to pronounce some IT people's names. I got you. So my issue was
what I need for you to do is Google Ebonics.
I'm aware of what it is. I just, it took me a minute to figure out how to pronounce his ion.
No,
I thought we were talking about. I don't even know.
Like protons and neutrons.
Yeah, I thought we were talking about little
Jimmy,
like Oppenheimer getting the physics.
See,
right.
You had to weave that in. You love that stuff.
I love physics, man. If it weren't for all the math, I'd have thought about it as a career choice. It's a lot of math, though. really more about the theory. I don't want to have to prove it.
Because I said so.
Yeah, that's why I do sports talk radio.
Wait, how does that work? How can I recreate that? I don't know. It's just what I think.
It's what I do.
Move on.
Don't worry about the scientific method. Just trust me. Take my word for it.
But why is it falling so fast? Because it is. Move on.
It's flickering.
I assume you've heard of gravity. So Shedeur yesterday, an article comes out in The Athletic, kind of just detailing a lot of the things we already knew about how players were let go from Colorado over the past year or so. And I guess here's the issue I had. So a player named Xavier Smith, who was trying to stick around, wanted to stick around, was told he needed to move on. And his quote basically is he was destroying guys' confidence and belief in them. This is about Deion. The way he did it, it could have been done with a little more compassion, which to me is a fair criticism. Listen, hold on. It's been one of my chief criticisms about Deion this entire time.
Borders.
Chief? What? Borders? The bookstore?
Yes.
R.I.P.
That's where I got my Feel Still mag. What am I going to do now?
And then Shedeur chimes in with, I'm gonna Englishify his version here. I don't even remember him, to be honest. Bro had to be very mid at best.
Where's Steven when we need him?
Well,
we should have Steven read the tweet.
I didn't even remember TBH.
Steven rolling this morning.
And listen, what that says to me, which I can't really get down with, is that you have to be good at football to be dealt with a little compassion. And I don't think that's true.
That is.
I do think that's how the Sanders family operates.
You are all over that.
Yeah, I really am.
Be kind. Hashtag be kind.
Yes.
How about a little civility, Ravi?
I'm not going to do that. I think that's been clear. Coming up next, we'll set up the show probably here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Good morning. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's CB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're at the Pillar Exterior stage here at the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, where I have to tell you, today only.
To this day?
Today only. So I'm allowed to make that voice with Deontay Wilder, but not the Iron voice, or what's happening here?
It's like most things, selective outrage.
Fair enough.
I mean, how can I expect you to know what upsets me when I just get to pick and choose what upsets me?
Fair enough. I can live with that. Oh, there it is, Shane. That means, you know how fast you got that done? That means he totally forgot about it until you told me.
Welcome to May 1st.
To this day.
Forever on delay.
What was yesterday that was after the show?
What do you mean?
That he came over here and he propped his little behind down and he's like looking up as we were sitting here and he goes, was it the hockey series? Was it might have been Tampa. It was something. And he goes,
yes, because you asked about like an hour earlier. You asked if his brother, the Lightning fan, was okay.
Yeah.
And then
that was at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, and then he comes walking in after he vapes after the show's over, and he's like, he's not okay. And he before we get derailed though, today at Hurrdat Sports,
but there was cursing.
Shane, I need to get
cursing
this out.
in those texts, so that's the reason why I didn't want to bring it up.
Shane, I need to get this important.
My
Stop
man
talking
dropped
for a
myriad
second.
though.
He did drop a myriad. Today at the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, both locations, every dollar you spend here goes directly. All proceeds go to
that's unbelievable
tornado relief. It's going to be to the local Nebraska and Iowa Red Cross because we don't want to forget about our friends in Iowa. They're only friends right now. We'll be enemies again in August. But they got hit hard by these tornadoes, same storms that came through Lincoln and Elkhorn and Blair and downtown Omaha. They hit Iowa just as hard, maybe even harder. So all proceeds from
that is fantastic.
Both locations, Gretna and right here at La Vista.
Oh man,
go to the Nebraska and Iowa Red Cross to help tornado victims. The money staying local. It took a couple days to make sure the money was going to stay local. So that's today. Make sure you get out here and support your friends, your neighbors, your family that are going through it. And I know the Hurrdat Sports team's back out at it again this morning in Blair.
I'm telling you, leadership matters.
Leadership does matter. It really does. That's why Dion bothers me so much.
God, just think about that for a second. Can I?
Yeah.
I'm kind of a musher.
Yeah.
But you also know how I feel about Bill.
100%. Yeah.
Right? Like, we being serious?
Yeah.
All means all.
All proceeds from both locations. It's the way to do it.
It's a good dude.
It's a good dude. So make sure you get down here.
Wow.
Make sure you take your lunch break over here. Come over after work. We want to pack this place out, both locations, so we can get a huge amount of money over to Nebraska and Iowa Red Cross. So we appreciate any support that you can give as well. Also,
I just happen to be rocking my hoodie today.
I know. Look at you supporting the team.
I love the way that it fits.
They're good hoodies.
Yeah,
they really are.
It's pretty sensational.
You can still drop stuff off as well. We've got a ton of donations that have come in over the last couple of days. Come in, drop your stuff off, have a meal. The money will go to Iowa, Nebraska Red Cross. We'll be good to go.
Good to go.
All right. Want to set up the show real quick before I get to Jack. Jack, hang on there. Coming up at 8, we are going to talk to Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. 8:30, Kevin Sjuts, 10:11 News and Lincoln. 8:45, my guy Alex Sindelar. Creighton baseball analyst. Him and I have been out golfing a little bit lately.
Alex.
Been spending a lot of time with Alex. I love Alex.
Dude.
9:45. We're going to get the other side.
I'm kind of jealous.
You want to come hang out with us? I don't think you do.
Can I set the time limit?
Sure, I don't care.
Because this would be new, so I don't like to just go all.
You don't like going open-ended?
Yeah,
You're like, hey, you got 30 minutes.
Yeah, I got to see if I like this or not. I need an escape hatch.
Only on DB's terms.
Yeah, it's different. You got me out in public.
We'll start out at like a driving range. That way you can like hit 30 balls and be like, I got to go, guys.
Yeah.
Instead of going and playing 9 or 18 where you're kind of stuck on the cart.
You've never seen a more smooth 190.
Then coming up at 9:45, we'll get the other side of that coin with Ben Mclaughlin from Husker Radio Network. He was on the Nebraska call last night.
And I need a preview for K-State tonight, too, because Nebraska hasn't won a midweek game
It's been a minute.
Over a month.
It has been a minute. Let's get to the Hurrdat hotline, though, with our guy, Jack. Wants to, I don't know something about field goal kicking. What's up, Jack?
Well, we need to get better.
Well,
That's
no,
probably what it is.
here's the deal. Here's the deal, guys. If we got a possibility, I'm just like everybody else. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid from Saturday. Loved what I saw, except I didn't like the 1 for 3 in field goals.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're going to be in a ton of games next year that the spread is going to be 7 or less. We go 1 for 3 in those in field goals, then we've gone from possibly a 9-3 team to a 7-5, 6-6 team pretty quick.
Yeah, 100%.
You got to make them. Last year, we gave him all the slack in the world because he was a freshman, a kid, learning his way. Well, the honeymoon's over. He's got to start kicking the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Appreciate.
I'm interested in what you have to say.
Appreciate it, Jack.
Jack, thanks for the call.
He reached out on Sunday.
I mean, he's not wrong. Jack's not wrong.
He knows. I mean, he's kind of going through it, I think, in terms of the biggest thing, I think, for him is he's never had anybody really say anything negative about him. So
that's a different experience.
Yeah. Well, what does Coach Rule talk about all the time? He gave an analogy the other day to former players because he likes to set kind of the tone, right? Mm-hmm. If we're going to be in this deal, we're going to be in this deal together. This is just another reason why I respect him. He's like, hey, listen, man, like, how receptive would you be to guys that talk bad about your fellow brothers? Right? There's a way to go about constructive criticism without being an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, you guys would have to worry about the 8 people that covered you, right? And what was going to be in what's considered now the snail mail in the newspaper later on. He said by the end of a quarter now, or the end of the next drive, you'll be a meme on social media being sent to thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Like he said, it's just different.
Yeah.
So be cognizant. I'm not saying, that it's nothing that players and Tristan in particular can't overcome, but when you've gone 18 years living the good life, semi-charm life.
Mm-hmm.
I think kind of what to do with social media, how to dial back in, kind of get back to having fun, kind of managing his newfound, because he's bigger, stronger, got a heck of a leg, like just getting back to the principles and just kind of being carefree. So, I mean, it's in there. There's no question. It's like nobody's buried their head in the sand. He's aware. I think Nebraska's aware. And listen, full disclosure, while everybody's having to get better, Nebraska special teams has got to get significantly better if you're going to play in close games, because I think there's some in-game situations from a year ago that have to get better too. So you need more margin for for error.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're going to get over the hump. I mean, Jack, that's no secret. They've got to tighten it up.
And it's funny that you bring up, the way people react to social media and things like that, because I talk a lot about how when people haven't been through the near misses thing we were talking about, if you haven't been through a little bit of trauma in your life,
we're going to talk about that tomorrow, by the way.
The first thing that comes up, can we tease that yet?
Sure.
Okay, we do it later. The first when you haven't been through some things yet, the first time it comes up, it's going to hit you differently, especially if you're older, right? If you've been dealing with sort of chaotic situations for a lot of your life or some adversity for a lot of your life, by the time you're an adult and it comes, it's second nature, right? You just deal with it. And that's not to say that Tristan Alvano can't deal with it, but it is to say that maybe this, like you said, maybe it isn't something he's got a lot of practice at yet. And figuring that out is going to be pretty crucial to how this goes for him.
I just had a conversation yesterday, the day before yesterday, and I think it was yesterday, maybe the day before anyway. Somebody was like, hey, really admire like your self-control, like your patience. And I'm like, I don't know if it's any better. Like, I'm just experienced.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's my experience dealing with stressors.
Yeah.
It's no magic formula really, except for
and
I've just been through a ton.
Yeah.
So my patience is different.
And the key I think people don't realize is that doesn't mean it doesn't stress you out still.
100%.
It just means you know how to handle it.
That's the thing.
And nobody realizes that.
That's the beauty of it right there.
We'll wrap up hour number 1 coming up next. Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. And as we said, SDB, I'm Ravi Lulla. It's the first day of May. You know what's coming up on Friday, May 3rd, is Taco Fest. Okay? We've got some of the best taco trucks in Omaha. We got one of them's a churro truck, which I'm excited about. We got a nacho bar prepared by Whispering Roots executive chef Mario.
Shane has nacho cheese.
This is an A and B conversation, nachos.
This is quietly a solid.
I didn't even do it right. It's a taco burrito conversation, nachos. Yeah. My bad. I'm an idiot. Anyway,
how have I not heard? Probably because it's corny.
Yeah, it's dumb.
I haven't even heard that before.
It's corn like the chips and the nachos. Lord. It's Friday, May 3rd. It's Friday, May 3rd from 5 to 9 p.m. at Whispering Roots Food and Nutrition at 2624 Edward Babe Gomez Avenue. Make sure you use the discount code TACOS20 for 20% off your ticket price. That's at whisperingroots.org/TacoFest, whisperingroots.org/TacoFest to get your tickets. That's coming up on Friday. Don't miss out on Taco Fest at Whispering Roots Food and Nutrition. What's up? You good?
Just a cool street name. He's a South grad.
Edward Babe Gomez?
Yes.
It's a great name.
Yeah. Served in the military. Heck of a hero.
Yeah.
Don't quote me.
I won't.
But I'm pretty sure he's in South High's Hall of Fame. Well, if you have a street named after
you, I'm
assuming.
You got to.
I think he's in their Hall of Fame too.
He should be.
Yeah.
Well deserved there.
I got an interesting. Interesting message that he gives me a different way to look at this.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because we're talking about Tristan Alvano field goal kicking and kind of
overcoming some things,
managing. Yeah. Basically, the whole thing is managing stressors, right?
Yeah.
And he says, I think the older you get, the more patient you become. People in general. And I said, that's interesting. Because sometimes people go the other way.
I don't know if that's true. I think it can go either way.
So you know what I think? You know where I think he's right is because I am experienced. Because the word that was used with me was like they appreciated my self-control. And I'm like, I don't know if it's self-control as much as it is experience. And maybe I'm speaking personally because I know I have the ability to erupt. Like it's in there. Shoot, it almost happened this morning. I mean, we're talking at like 6:10.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, I know it's in there, but my experience, and maybe I'll get to a point where like I'm older, where I just won't care as much. And so I'll be more set.
So that's different than patient. That's apathetic.
So it's not that. I think a lot of times when people get older, one of two things happen. It's either been there, done that, can't change it, so I don't care. That's the apathy.
Okay, fair.
Or I've earned the right to feel this way.
Yeah, and I think...
Do you know what I mean?
I'll say I think the problem is sometimes when you get older, you get like... I think I've become a much more compassionate person. You may not get that on the air, but I've become, in the last 10 years, especially the last 5 or 6 years, I've become a way more compassionate person. Like in my general life when I'm not talking about sports on the radio. If you bring Dion up or something, though, like we got problems. But in general, but that's part of the reason I have a problem with Dion is because I've become more compassionate. There's a time I would have looked at Dion and not had a problem with what he was doing, maybe thought it was funny. Like there is a time that would have been true. That is not the case anymore.
Yeah, and I'm with you because there are times like coaches will say things or they'll talk to players a certain way.
It just doesn't hit me right.
And I'm all in.
Yeah.
Like, because I'm like, gosh, that's probably what I would have needed, right? I like direction. But just interesting because sometimes I get a little cringy because I'm like, ooh, you don't know their background.
And because as a coach, I don't think that's how you are from what I've seen.
100%.
You're very much like relationship, care about the person first because you've seen too many people.
Who was that was blown away by my sideline demeanor? Was it Andrews? He's like, even when you're upset, you're using full sentences.
I think so.
I was like, oh, that's funny.
just articulating out there while you're mad at your
like,
defense.
even if I'm talking to an official, like I'll try, it's fairly lighthearted.
Yeah. Unless you're like trying to get somebody's attention or whatever, and then you got to like yell to kind of. But my point is, I think when you get older, it goes one of two ways. You either become more compassionate, more understanding, more patient, or your heart starts to get a little hard. You start to think, either the world's got it out for you, or somebody owes you something, or whatever it is, and you get bitter and resentful, and then you don't have time for anybody. And there's not a lot in between.
Yeah, and I think going back to the field goal kicking and special teams or whatever we're talking about with what players are going through and how they use social media, I have to be honest, right? I have to put myself back in the shoes of an 18 or 19-year-old, right? I remember full disclosure, like I was mad at Chattel for like 10 years. 10 years over
something he wrote.
Yeah. Right. I was mad at this person because, they weren't like, they didn't say I'm sorry or they didn't go back and get it, and he's kind of getting raked through the coals. And I held on to that. And I'm just thinking to myself, how much worse would that be like now? Right. Who has a really good grasp of that? Foreman. He and I think a lot alike in terms of how to deal with players, but between me and him, we're very similar. Like, don't be a baby. At some point you got to get it together.
Don't need a babysitter. Don't make me hold your hand the whole time.
But we don't always treat those that we're either coaching or mentoring like that in the moment, because you have to get to that point, even though ultimately we may feel like it's what's best.
Well, I mean, like when you're a parent, right? Okay, you don't want to have to hold your kid's hand at a certain point, but in order to do that, you have to carry them first. You have to teach them how to crawl. You have to hold their hands while they walk. Like until they get to the point where you can take off the training wheels, if you will. You still have to do a lot of hand holding to get to that point.
So full disclosure. Okay, we're talking yesterday. This is way behind the sausage just made. This is on the heels of Tristan and psychologics, the mind and everything, which is one of the few places where I think I'm actually okay, right? Pretty headstrong. So we're talking in the kitchen, and Caleb comes upstairs, and it's just me and him, and he says, the more I'm around this, the more I'm in this. It's weird to me how little people know. And so I said, what are you talking about? So he's like scrolling through social media. He's like, well, this person said this, and then they say this about, he goes, it's not really like that. And I had an aha moment. I'm pulling some meat out of the fridge, and I go, hey, listen, that is what we've always talked about. That is 90. I just had this conversation with Tyson Terry yesterday. He sent me the greatest text, just unsolicited. But anyway, I said, you have at some point, and it's what has served you well, you have to be secure in who you are and where you are, because people will say anything. It's like,
people,
you're gonna hear, like, we're just scrolling through accounts. I'm like, listen, this person said this, and this person, he used to, when he was younger, he used to say, Dad, I don't know how you do it. Dad, I don't know how you do it. Dad, I don't know how you do it. Even when I'm going to have a back and forth with somebody, if I choose to go there, it's rare. It's only about
you used to more
9 times a year. I will.
Yeah.
Just depends on what it is. I have certain triggers. And it's not necessarily the malicious stuff. It's when you want to it's always when you want to try to tell me what I think. That's usually going to be
that gets you going.
Yeah. Like, so when we're talking, and I'm like, it's the whole key to being able to do athletics in school. There's going to be lots of criticisms. There's going to be lots of attaboys. Your ability to compartmentalize based on being grounded is the whole key. There are going to be times people are going to tell you, oh man, school is this, and this. So there's going to be this natural tendency. I don't need to do this anymore. Or people are going to say, you're not good at that, or you're not this, or can't believe you missed this tackle. And you're going to have to be able to resort back to something. That's why I always like kind of having gone through it early. Right. And just because what you were talking about, it's like seasoning, right?
You're building up a callus.
You have to be really, really seasoned. But it's just amazing how 18 years. His birthday's in a month.
It took me way longer than 18 years to get there.
He's understanding.
Yeah.
Just rest in what you know. Don't go chase that other stuff.
Yeah.
Like don't go chase a lie. Right? Like,
well, and even if you think it's the truth, you don't have any good chasing it either if it doesn't come internally.
So that's the thing with special teams in the kicking game, right? You can be motivated and know something is true without being consumed by it. The difference, right? It's just going to take a little bit of time.
I mean, that's the only reason I'm here. Like, full disclosure, I have thought that I was, and I know people still disagree, but I've thought that I've been good at this for a while, and I got passed over for a bunch of different jobs that I wanted to do this, and I had to sit there and think, okay, what do I know about what I do, and should I keep going?
Let me ask you something. Would you, in the same vein of shutting off radio versus continuing to listen, would you unplug from social media, or would you learn how to handle it?
Got to learn how to handle it. You can't shut out everything. You got to learn how to handle it at some point.
Gotcha.
Whether it's social media, whether it's people on the street, whether it's radio, whether it's just life in general, whether it's family, you got to learn how to handle it.
Gotcha.
Brian Christopherson coming up next. Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage, and we're brought to you by the Omaha Supernovas. Make sure you go to supernovas.com to get tickets for the final home match of the season on Thursday. That's a week from tomorrow, May 9th. Go to supernovas.com for tickets. Guys, it's the last home match. Let's blow this thing out, right? I know we've been flirting with like that 10, 11, 12. Let's see what we can do. Let's get a big number out there It's a 7 p.m. first serve. Let's get out to Omaha Supernovas and get supportive of Nebraska's professional volleyball team. Make sure you go to supernovas.com for tickets. Joining us now is Brian Christopherson on the Hurrdat hotline from Husker 24/7. BC, what's going on, man?
Oh, not too much. How are you guys?
BC, what's up, buddy? I saw you in quick passing from the side. I mean, did you get the vibe? And I asked this to Ravi. Was it a little subdued, or was it because it was so early, everybody was just kind of on a mission to get locked and loaded on Saturday?
I think it was maybe because of the kickoff time.
Yeah.
We were all a little bit of grumpy bears, you know. We were there a little earlier than usual. And,
you grumpy bear.
I noticed you waltzed right by me and didn't want to say much to me, and I felt it. I felt the coldness, so I just kept moving.
I'm so sorry.
That's not true. Damon gave me a fist pound. We were good.
Yeah. It was quick.
Yeah.
I didn't see you. I think I was in the front row. I think you guys were behind me, kind of in your little Husker 24/7 perch up there, where you didn't have to wear sunglasses, or you didn't have to wear sunglasses to watch the game from inside, which is fine.
That's why we're in the second row. Yeah, we had a choice. I don't want to make this thing. We had a choice once to go up there, and we voted, I think, 3-0. Let's stay in the second row. You get the TV monitor, and you get the sun out of your eyes. So I prefer it up there a little bit.
I will say, I don't know what you mean about being grumpy, though. I was excited. I was happy to be there.
Ravi was just trying to shake off the fact he heard the "please be quiet" in press box for the start of the third quarter.
Nobody says that at Creighton games, BC. It's just me.
Yeah.
It's just me and D. Marinas up there acting a fool most of the time. Brian, let's get into the spring game a little bit. It seemed like the offense was ahead of the defense, which is to kind of be expected with where the defensive personnel was in that game. Is that fair?
I thought the offense had a better day for the most part. I think a big part of it's what you're talking about. When you look at who is off the field for the first string defense, I mean, that's the heart of that unit. So you'd expect some of that. But I mean, Dylan Raiola was the name on the marquee that was in the biggest letters for most people, for probably about every person. And when he was out there, the thing I liked is it didn't matter which unit he was functioning with. They seemed to have a little something behind him. He made the throws that showed off the arm talent, and then there were the throws he didn't make, which were just as impressive. That sort of contributed to the offense having that kind of day. Like that third down play Rule mentioned in the post game. Where they're in field goal range, he's rolling right. And, a lot of guys in that circumstance would have said, you know what, scrimmage, I'm here to show a little something. I'm going to fling this across my body and see if I can't fit it in a window, make something happen. I just like how it seems like he's building habits, no, that's not what I do on this one. I'm running out of bounds. We live for the field goal. And it was stuff like that I think the coaching staff appreciated as much as his performance as the long touchdown pass, to be honest. And I did too. It's the thing after a 31 turnover season where you look at a play like that and you're like, there it is. That's sometimes the difference between winning one of these Big Ten games and losing it by 3 points.
BC, can I at the same time want him to have thrown it because I wanted to see it happen, and also appreciate the fact that he didn't? Because I think they're going to have this tension with Dylan, assuming that it continues to develop and move forward the way we think it's going to with him as QB1. But I think there's going to be a tension there between wanting him to show off these physical tools that we really haven't seen out of a Nebraska quarterback, and also making better decisions so we don't run into the same problems we had last year. Like, do you kind of get that sense already?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, give me the better decisions though all day.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I know what you're saying. As like a fan, sometimes you want to let's see if he can parallel park that thing between that. That's what you want. But I just thought he was very poised and in control for knowing the attention that was on him and that people are going to be sort of putting the Zapruder film on this thing for 4 months, about what the good and the bad was. This might seem over the top, but it's how I feel. It was the most encouraged I've been about an individual performance from a spring game and what it can mean to the team. It kind of just confirmed what I thought, but this spring game and how he did was the best I felt about an individual leaving it since when I was in college and DeMario Williams just took over a spring game in 2002. I wrote that and I mean it. And it's just because I just like that he was so consistent throughout the day. A lot of times when we've come out of spring games and we've hyped up a player like Jamal Turner or somebody because he flipped in the end zone, I don't remember what Jamal did that whole day, but he might have caught 3 passes or something, and he had the one highlight, and we make a big deal about it. I just like that there was a drumbeat to his performance that I felt was reliable. And I know it's just a scrimmage and all that, but for what we came there to watch, I thought he delivered that and made you feel good about where that's progressing and made you feel like you'd heard the stuff accurately from coaches all spring about how they felt the QBs were doing. Because obviously I thought Harburg, and I think Danny had his moments too, showed that position has made some steps this year.
Gosh, I can't help but to think of music. So you're either Michael Jackson, You're Not Alone, or it's like a Dr. Phil. It's a Dr. Feel Good moment, because when your colleague isn't dressing me down on air, he's gonna sell Kool-Aid. Would you set up shop next to Shafe and you guys kind of peddle the good vibes? Like, are you guys to that point? Because he said, full disclosure, like all the Kool-Aid, he's like, oh yeah, like he's all in. He's all in with the old powder drink.
I just felt good about where that the most important position sat leaving that field. I just thought, like, this is a guy who has a mentality that it's not just us that are picking up on it. I mean, he wrote the story with, Dawson Merritt and his dad, obviously, who coaches with the Chiefs. And
well, that's going to be interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, and I know some people will take that a certain way. I know what the Merritts are saying with that. It's like the mannerisms, it's the traits. It doesn't mean you're going to obviously be that guy, but you've got that sort of makeup about you that can lead to you being really successful. And I see what they're talking about from that angle. And I didn't go over there on Saturday just like
super thirsty,
to be like, yeah, just fired up through the roof about Dylan Raiola. I thought he would perform well. I know you've seen more of the stuff than I have over there, Damon, and I thought he would do well because I'd heard he has had a good spring.
Nobody's asked me, BC, but I'll say this and admit this out loud. He was significantly better on Saturday than I thought.
That's interesting.
There were some times I looked at Sharpie. I looked over at Coat, and I was just like, huh. Right? Like, he exceeded my expectations, and it wasn't the physical stuff so much as I got the sense like he should have been born in the 70s or 80s. He seemed like he had been there before. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest thing, and that's what I grabbed onto. It just felt like he sort of belonged in that sort of situation where, everyone came to see you, but I can do this. I was built for this. I've trained for this, and I'm going to go back to that and just make the right decisions. And I liked in the post game, on the interception. I actually didn't see that play back again, so I don't know. Maybe it was a little behind him. I didn't think it was a really bad ball when he threw it, but I just like that he took it all on himself. Like he said, "Oh, that's me. I got to be a better ball." Like whether it is or isn't doesn't matter. I thought he was hitting the right notes throughout the day, and some of this is because, frankly, around here, through some of the years, Nebraska's made like some standard like screenplays and things that I don't think should look that difficult, look very difficult. And I just thought on this particular day, a lot of the routine stuff that should should be done, like chewing gum, was done that way. And like he just put the ball in the money to let guys run with it. I like that earlier in this spring, when he was asked about explosive plays, and I think the question was trying to kind of get him talking about throwing the long ball and all that stuff. He's like, I got guys that I can get them the ball. You can get them that 2 to 5 yard pass and they can take it 25 yards. He's understanding like how those guys can benefit him if he puts the ball in the right spot, even on, on those short passes. So I don't know. He really impressed me Saturday. I'm probably going over the top a little bit, but I felt good about it. It made me feel a lot better about the offense than I've felt in a while. And it made me pay a lot more attention to the spring game than I've in a while. So all those things, you have to give credit to the guy who delivered there.
Yeah, and full disclosure, I've told this story, right? I wanted to be a profiler before I was a marine biologist, and before I figured out none of those things are realistic. When I got to college, I settled on elementary education. But I loved, so when I say that about him exceeding my expectations, now keep in mind, just the Tuesday before we're down there and we're getting all our nutrition stuff done and getting set up for labs, and he comes out of the pool because, you know, and he's wet, and he like grabs Caleb from behind. You know, he's like, "What's up, man? Something." I try not to listen, but he's like soaked, and he like jumps back in the water, and I'm thinking, this is the same guy that I just saw calmly walk up to the huddle, motion guys over, embrace the moment. When he talked about coming out of the tunnel and what it meant for him, I'm like, there's a lot of range in there. But what it lets me know is he understands. This is my takeaway. He understands the moment of where he needs to be and where he is currently. Like he is
situational needs.
His situational awareness. I was blown away from. I'm like, this is a pretty cool kid, young man.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, the recruits were buzzing about him. I mean, it just it transferred everywhere. I mean, the fans enjoyed it. Obviously, it picks up your peers on the offensive side of the ball when they feel like they've got good QB play and they're going a certain direction. But I'm talking to like offensive lineman John Mills, who was in visiting, and those guys are bringing up Ryla unsolicited, and it's just attractive to those type of players. Like, yeah, that's going to be pretty good maybe for a few years. That wouldn't be a bad thing to be a part of. They know how much that position serves the drink. And he does have that temperament around, whether it's his fellow players or even the new guys on campus. I think they felt like he's very personable with them. And so all that stuff matters. And so it sounds like he's done a really good job handling, what it means to be Nebraska's quarterback, and that's a tough job when you're a top 5 talked about name in the state like that. But he seems well prepared for it so far.
We're talking with Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. BC, I know we talk a lot about the family dynamics of Dylan in terms of how he got here, right? Obviously, uncle's on staff. Dad was a star here. Do we talk about it enough in terms of what the qualities in Dylan that we've just been talking about, being from a football family, having pro football players kind of model behavior for him in terms of his kind of expedited maturity in a football sense? Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, I think that's a huge part. And I mean, I think it helps you with the highs and lows, and there are going to be lows. There's going to be potholes this season that come with being a freshman quarterback, but you've seen people close to you go through it. It's not just his dad or his uncle. He surrounded himself with coaches that played at that level and, at the highest level. And he's seen how they've dealt with the good and the bad. And, okay, maybe this situation arises over here. How do you handle that particular thing? And you take mental notes on it, and it helps you when you get to that point. And we got a lot of guys like that coming through the program right now who have been associated with that sort of background throughout their life. I mean, Caleb's going to have that here at Nebraska. And I know Damon tweeted about, I wrote a story about the Vanden Bosches. Those boys are being recruited by Nebraska. It's kind of fun for me. You're seeing all these names cycle through now 20 years later. And all those kids, not kids, as young men, when you talk to them, they'd have a temperament. I can say almost a 98 percentile in a lot of these guys I'm talking to. That's very impressive, and it's they're much more mature than I was at that age, and I think it does come from you're studying the people around you and how they deal with some of that stuff, and then it helps you when you get to it.
Yeah, I think KVB is an amazing person. Like his like I could just see in an interview where they just ooze humility. There is no other way other than his dad. I mean, he was a pro's pro. The way that he attacks life, he doesn't need the credit. Like they're gonna be fun. They're gonna be fun to watch their evolution. BC, let me ask you something about the players that didn't play, because and maybe this is more me, so I just want to know if we're all in the same gang. There were stretches of this scrimmage where I forgot or didn't even think of no Jamari Butler, no Prince Umamewellen all spring, no they held Buford out for the most part. Like there are some guys that aren't even really the guys yet. Well, I guess Butler is. That didn't play, that didn't come to mind. Were you watching that? Which lets me know they have some pretty good depth. Were you watching that thing thinking, who's missing? Or were you watching that thing thinking, golly, they're going to have some nice additions too?
I think they're going to be able to do what they did last year, and by that I mean I think they're going to be able to roll out about 20 to 22 guys and feel good about it. And that I do think they can get to that point. I don't know, maybe you don't, but
I just no. The only reason I say that I'm fact finding the same as I'm asking. I just wonder if the standard is built for regression.
If I'm honest, it wasn't one of those days, and maybe I got caught. See, I haven't been able to watch it back yet. I'm actually going to do that today.
Okay.
Maybe it's because I got so caught up in the Dylan Raiola thing and what the offense was doing. The defense did not pop as much to me on Saturday. It didn't. Like there wasn't like a guy where I was just like, oh man, he just jumped off the screen at me. That said, I've heard enough and from people I trust to think that there's some guys that I think maybe at a young age can really contribute and be nice complementary parts to those guys who are missing. And you're here, like I don't know if Vincent Shavers, for example, is going to be ready right off the jump or not. But
you see his opening. You see his opening tackle on that screen.
Yeah,
he shows you some flashes, boy. He's a monster.
I like what he's about and all that. But admittedly, I got really caught up, not just in Raiola, but on the offense. I was kind of looking at how they were using certain guys, like Janiran Bonner when he pops up, and he's working with the first team right off the bat. And I just think they've found some guys like him. There's the guys like your Luke Lindenmeyers, your sort of unsung guys. It's like that niche category of like 3 to 5 guys on offense that you need to be really good at what they do in particular to have this offense meet the next level. And I kind of got distracted with some of those thoughts. But I'm going to go back and study the defense more today, I think. And I do think that the interesting thing now is what happens at the, at that cornerback spot. It was really a bummer when Bly went down. There's no doubt about it. It would be any time, but that's a guy who, 12 practices in as the head coach saying if it were today, he'd be the guy opposite Tommy. I mean, that's big work he got done. And so I hope he can get back as soon as he can. But I'm really interested now, like how that transpires and sort of who the names are that emerge, as next in line there.
Yeah, BC, it's super interesting because I think, we talked about this last week where there's a ton of names in that secondary and a ton of options. And I still don't know who the corner would be tomorrow opposite Tommy Hill now that Bly Hill has been banged up. Now, there's some hope that I think that he'll be back before fall, but we really don't know any of that yet. Like that, isn't that kind of a strange place to be in where you look at it and you're like, hey, I like that guy. Maybe Jeremiah Charles. They've talked highly about him, and you've got all these different guys that you kind of like, but you have no idea necessarily where they fit or how good they actually are when you get into games.
Yeah, and I know mid-spring it was mentioned by Evan Cooper, like Hartzog was working at safety and stuff like that. Obviously, he's been a guy who's been around and has played all those spots, and so there's pieces you can move around. But the point is, and it was going to be this way even if Bly were ready to go or not, but you're going to have 2 or 3 young players, like sort of in their first year of college football, I think step up and help your depth at that corner spot. And as much as we talk about the schedule opening up opportunities on the front end, and as much as right now it's fashionable to take our licks at what's going on with Colorado, that is a good QB. He's got some weapons on the outside, and that's going to be a major test for some young players that second game of the season. So it definitely is one of those, like, okay, if you said, what are like 3 topics, give me, that you're sort of pondering with a little bit of like not concern, but you're cautious about as it ends the spring. Well, when Bly went down, it would be that corner spot, and like exactly how is that going to look and all that. But all told, I do think that's a confident group on the defensive side. I like the leadership from the players, and I think they set the tone. I think Gift sets the tone, and that it'll be a different look in the fall camp when 7 or 8 of those guys who weren't on the field on Saturday are out there and challenging you in scrimmages, and then you get to the game. So that changes the picture from what we saw during the red-white game for sure.
BC, when will you start to entertain relative to what you saw on the offense that we've been lamenting about versus what the defense can replicate and special teams? Like, is that after summer? Is it now? Are you already in that process of how those things can coexist?
Oh yeah, well, we got 4 months to talk about it, so I think we gotta hit on those topics just as much to fill the time, right? So I mean, it was a bummer, that for Alvano to go 1 for 3, and the first one was a rough miss. No, I mean, there's no lies about that. So I know he's a confident kid. You know his mentality more than I do. He's got good people around him. The tough part is you can work through it all off to the side, but you still got to go out there in that game setting, and you're going to have some success early on to really feed that mindset, where it's like, okay, I saw that one go through, and now I'm off and running. So that's where you hope that, like in the first game, you get a little distance. There's that 38-yard kick where Nebraska's already up 14 points. He knocks it through, and it kind of just you're running downhill then, that sort of thing. So that's what I hope. But yeah, I'm definitely thinking about it. And I mean, from what we've seen, there's been some struggles there. And so this is a savvy fan base. They know, and this coaching staff has emphasized a lot of these games are going to be decided by 3 or 4 points. You've got to have that position in order. So hopefully Tristan can get it going, because I know the talent's there, and I know he's got the guys around him to try to help him through it. So hopefully it gets going.
That's Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. BC, we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, B.
Yep, thanks, guys.
More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. We're halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla, and I got to remind you about the Husker Spring Volleyball match coming up on Saturday. And if you're not going to be in Kearney, that's okay, because you can watch it on Nebraska Public Media. They've got you covered. It's a 2 p.m. start on May 4th. That's Saturday, May 4th. University of Nebraska spring volleyball match. They'll be taking on the University of Denver at UNK. Nebraska Public Media Sports brings you live coverage. So if you're not able to be in Kearney, make sure you tune in at 2 p.m. on Nebraska Public Media. Joining us now, part of the not-so-public media, Kevin Sjuts from 1011 News in Lincoln. Kevin, what's going on, man?
Good morning. I want to start by applauding you guys and the entire Hurrdat Sports team and everything you're doing with tornado relief. Completely awesome that you guys are spending your time helping out and finding ways for others to help everybody that was affected by Friday's destruction.
Oh man, Kevin, I appreciate that. Thank you. Good leadership over here, Kevin. Really, really good leadership. Let me ask you, Kevin. I asked Ravi off air and kind of at the tail end of BC. We talked a ton of offense, but defensively, it's like, okay, these guys weren't playing, and we got to get these guys healthy and man this secondary. Are you ready to set an expectation level for Nebraska defensively based on them saying they want to be the best defense in the country, putting up some pretty gaudy numbers? Where are you kind of with rationalizing the statistic possibilities of that going into next season?
It's hard to set an expectation without seeing it. And
Right.
we really didn't see it on Saturday, especially with the green no contact jersey, because one of the things that Nebraska wants to do defensively with improvement in mind is to get to the quarterback. Last year the pass rush was okay, maybe a little subpar, and that's a huge area of growth. And how much can you even really do that when the green no contact jersey is on? And not to mention, you don't have Nash playing up front. You don't have Ty Robinson playing up front. Buford's not playing on the back end.
Your tackles for a loss leader didn't play in Jamari Butler.
Yeah, exactly. So, if you're asking me to zone in on the defense, I really don't even have a takeaway from what I saw on Saturday, and that's fine with me.
Yeah.
How does it translate to the fall and what I'm going to expect of them? I've got to go off of words right now. I'd rather go off of my eyes, and unfortunately, we can't really do that until August.
Kevin, do you think they could be a more effective defense while having some of those metrics slip from last year? Like maybe they give up more rushing yards per game, but they get off the field on third downs a little bit better. Or
good question.
Maybe they give up a little bit more in the passing game, but they're getting more takeaways. Like, is that maybe a more realistic possibility than us just thinking, oh, well, it's another year in Tony White's defense. They're going to be better across the board.
Yeah, great point. Great question, Ravi. Yeah, the numbers sometimes you can spin them however you want. What I'm more interested in defensively is if you're going to limit a big drive or limit, when does it happen? If you're making stops mid-first quarter, okay, that's good for the numbers, but can you get off the field in crunch time when you need to get the offense the ball back? So I guess to answer your question, I'm with you on the numbers are the numbers. You don't have to be the number one defense in the country. You just have to be good when it matters most. And the takeaways thing, that's pretty big.
Yeah.
Can they get the ball back and try to play the numbers game that way, like a possessions game? And if you can swing that, it's definitely going to increase your chance of victories this upcoming fall.
Yeah, I love the question and kind of the give and take, because remember we've forgotten, because Coach Rule, there's such tremendous trust. There were so many little things in game that drove us crazy last year. And I'm wondering, if all things stay the same, where will our margin of error be? Will it be less? Will it be more? You know what I mean? It's like, should they have used the timeout there, or attempt this or that play called? There were these little finite things that happened within a pretty statistically good defensive performance. I do out loud now wonder where the give and take will be with some of those statistical numbers.
But it's a dance, right? It's not just all on the defense. The defense looks better when the offense is playing better. And the defense looks better when the offense can score, late in the game. So the numbers do look good defensively from a year ago, but can the offense capitalize? And I think that what we saw on Saturday in the red-white scrimmage is this offense seems to me, hate to make too much out of one big scrimmage, but I think they might be a little bit more opportunistic, and I think they have better big play potential, and they could possibly score at a higher clip when the pressure is on late in the game.
If nothing else, Kevin, just hold the ball longer, right? You average having less than 6 plays per drive last year. So just think about how if you hold the ball another 3 or 4 plays per drive longer, how much more fresh your defense could be later on. I agree with you completely about the complimentary thing. Just maybe they're not on the field as much.
And possibly it's just get a little bit deeper on a drive to milk the clock late in the game when you have a lead, or get deeper on a drive to shorten a field goal attempt. Instead of trying to kick from 45, can you kick from 30? And I think that those little things, we might find out at the end of the 2024 campaign that 5-7 in 2023 was actually really close to 8-4. We don't know. But maybe this upcoming season will show you, as you mentioned, DB, that the margin of error, it might be completely different this year. And it might tell you that the players from last year's team that return, still really good players. It's just those fleeting moments seem to pass Nebraska by.
We're talking with Kevin Sjuts from 1011 News in Lincoln. Kevin, we do kind of know, though, right? Like, we do know that it was pretty close to 8-4. Like, we saw it. Right? Like, we do kind of know.
He keeps trying to convince me of that, Kevin. I don't know.
Let me ask you this, though, because I'm not going to throw the Dylan Raiola thing out there. But if we had seen...
I want you to throw the Dylan Raiola thing out there. Let's go.
Well, I think this question is more interesting. If it's not, you can just turn it into a Dylan Raiola answer anyway. That's fine. If we had seen the version of Heinrich Haarberg we saw on Saturday all season last year, we probably are talking about a 7 or 8 win team, right? Is that an exaggeration, or do you think that's close?
I think that's totally fair. And give me Heinrich Haarberg throughout the entire season.
Right. Yeah. The all 12.
Yeah, I think that saying that Heinrich Haarberg would have led Nebraska to 8 wins on the version of Heinrich Haarberg we saw on Saturday, I think that's pretty reasonable, what you just said, Ravi.
Isn't it weird, Kevin? And I was harping on this Monday because I just like the guys behind the scenes as a trio. When you get the unselfishness and work ethic of Raiola, you get the I'm a team first guy in Danny Kalen, and Haarberg's I'm going to work my tail off regardless of who's in front of me. Kind of when you get the mentality of that quarterback room right. How much of that do you think leads to optimism? Because it appears to be a well-oiled machine emotionally.
And I think that starts at the top. That only works.
Good point.
Those personalities only work if you have the right quarterbacks coach and you have the right head coach. Because you have to manage that situation very delicately.
Good point.
It doesn't always work. But if you're able to continue to motivate each of those guys, and also make sure each of those quarterbacks, which is such a highly competitive position by nature, if you can get them to buy into the overarching theme of the team of we're competing, but we want what is best for everybody. It takes a special leader to do that. And I think Nebraska maybe has the right guy to manage a situation like they have right now, because I think in a lot of instances when you have the talent of Raiola and you have the homegrown blue-collar guy like Heinrich Haarberg, and you got a Danny Kalen who just, all-American guy, like it. Sometimes that leads to, I want to leave, oh, I guess you're it. But I don't know that's not what's happening at Nebraska, and I think you can trace it all the way up to the front office with Matt Rule.
That is Kevin Sjuts, 1011 News in Lincoln. Terrific stuff today, Kev. We appreciate it.
Always like talking Husker football. You boys have a great week.
Thanks, Kevin.
You too. That's our guy, Kevin Sjuts, 1011 News in Lincoln.
Why you let me revisit what they could have been last year? I try to not to, I hate doing that.
I love doing it. I love it because I think it provides important context for this year. I'm not trying to go back and get 8 wins last year. I'm not.
I wonder how much confidence them having in the offense changes their situational issues that they had last year.
Defensively?
Well, offensively
too. Yeah.
But managing time, like there was a lot.
Yes, I think situationally they would do things a lot differently.
Personnel, having to burn timeouts, all those things.
Well, and how aggressive you can be on the other side of the ball. There's a lot that goes into. Coming up next, though, we're going to talk a little Creighton, Nebraska baseball with Alex Sindelar. Well, tell us how you really feel, Creighton. This is Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi, Lulla. We're wrapping up hour number 2. And I got to tell you real quick about the Team Jack Foundation. Go to teamjackfoundation.org to get involved. We were trying to have that event here last Friday. Obviously, Mother Nature happened. We had to postpone that. In the meantime, though, go to teamjackfoundation.org. You can donate directly on that page there. We will get the event rescheduled whenever we can get everybody lined up. But in the meantime, go check out the other events they have. Go check out what projects they're involved in, because they get involved with the top national institutes in cancer research, and they're funding projects with over $12 million raised to date, just trying to find better treatments and eventually a cure for childhood brain cancer. That's teamjackfoundation.org to get involved. Joining us now on the Hurrdat Hotline is Alex Sindelar. He is a Creighton baseball analyst and just an overall good dude to hang out with. Alex, what's up, buddy?
Wow, that's quite the intro, Ravi. I appreciate that.
What, the Team Jack part or the good hang part?
I think it stems from the fact you give him grace and crack jokes, even though he appears to be like more like a bad version of a very poor golfer, and you don't give him a hard time. Like I think that's I think he loves your compassion because he's team awful.
Look, you got to grow the game. You don't grow the game by being harsh on somebody. I mean, you can talk trash all you want, but if I ever want to golf with Ravi again, my golfing circle is pretty small. So, look, I'm going to be as nice as I possibly can because.
Hey,
it's always good to play with somebody you're better than, right?
I hit like 2 or 3 good shots.
You did. I gave you encouragement.
You did.
I mean, you got to be a little soft. You know, you can't. Now, I mean, if we're like 3 years from now and you're still playing the same way and we're playing, often enough.
Oh yeah.
Then I might talk a little bit more smack. So enjoy it while you can.
If I'm playing the same way I play now, 3 years from now, I'm just packing it in, bud.
Yeah. And speaking of talking smack, we just heard the clip about. Now this is something that I hadn't heard between both schools, and I followed this a long time. Like, we talked about facilities and the bigger program. It was actually verbalized out loud. We saw the locker room stuff about Blue State, and I get the emotions, but are you surprised with the success that rubbing the face in it is still a thing, or where you think most of the guys are getting to a point where it's like, yeah, this is kind of what we're supposed to do. This is how we feel about Creighton.
No, I think they're gonna talk that talk whenever they can. I mean, you get a 3-game sweep over the in-state rival that's a little bit more highly touted. They're on national television more often. I mean, yeah, absolutely. You sweep that season series, you have all the room in the world to talk as much as you want. Now, had they dropped that game and they get 2-1, it's like, okay, then you can talk a little bit more about respect and respecting your opponent and respecting their game. But you get a 3-game sweep in this rivalry series, it's like, yeah, you're going to talk that. And if anything, it just adds a little bit more fuel to the fire as the years go on, as the seasons go on. And really, they're just laying the groundwork for what this rivalry should be going forward. I mean, Creighton's got a lot of seniors. They got a lot of guys who have played in these games. They haven't lost in Nebraska a lot. But it seems like the local media, they always kind of treat Creighton baseball as an afterthought, while Nebraska baseball is kind of flashing all over the front page, if and when they win. So yeah, I mean, absolutely, they can talk that. I'm all about it. I'm all about just a little bit more fire there. I think that's great, and I mean, it's undeniable that Nebraska baseball has the funding, has the facilities. I mean, the Creighton baseball players are also burdened a little bit by the fact that they have to pay that tuition at Creighton, and they get a part.
Still there?
It's cheaper in state. Oh, did you lose me?
Nope, you're there. We got you. Cheaper in state. Yeah.
Okay.
So
no, you're good. Yeah, and yeah.
Let me ask you something. So, if you're a Nebraska fan, you'll go back to, hey, game 2, 9th inning lead. Kind of gave that away. Or last night, man, you make a couple of plays on some routine plays, it's different. Where does Creighton fans say, you know what, that's just kind of what we do. We're optimistic. You let us, you leave the window cracked, we'll kick the whole thing in. Like, there's got to be something to be said for Creighton. Yeah, I mean, Creighton just being good at baseball.
No, I think that's the way that Creighton baseball kind of rolls. I mean, in some of these weekend series in the Big East, they get down a few runs in the first inning. They just really can't, claw their way back. And if you give them a little bit of an opening, they're going to take it. I mean, you saw that, on display back in 2019 when they were playing in that Corvallis Regional. And in Game 6 against Michigan, who eventually, ended up in the national title game against Vanderbilt, Michigan just started walking guys, and they just sat there and watched pitch after pitch, and then eventually came back from 7 runs down to win that game by 3. So that's just the way that Service kind of the ethos of the entire program is make them make mistakes, and the moment they give you an opening, just kick that door down and do not let them back into it. And that's just the way that Service coaches ball. That's the way that Connor Gandasi coaches ball. I mean, this entire coaching staff is predicated. They might not have all the talent in the world, but the moment that they get that opportunity, they make sure that they take full advantage of it.
We're talking with Alex Sindelar. He's a Creighton baseball analyst and my new golf coach. Alex, I have to ask, right, because there's this dramatic difference between what we see from Creighton on midweek and non-conference opponents and what we see on the weekends against the likes of Villanova and Georgetown. I mean, is it a small sample size that you hope evens itself out, or what do you see going on here? Because Creighton is in real danger of leading the nation in non-conference wins and not making their own conference tournament.
Well, they got to go 8 out of 10, maybe.
I mean, probably close to it, right?
Yeah, they're flirting with a lot of danger, and they got a tough slate coming up. I mean, they got St. John's this weekend. They got UConn coming up for a 3-game series. But I think the biggest thing for the Jays is that they empty the tank a little bit more, and the pitching is a little bit more purposeful midweek. I mean, you're throwing arms that don't necessarily get innings, and they're not getting a lot of in-game pitches. And so when they kind of capitalize on those opportunities, they make the most of it. You look at Malachi Vitak in the weekends, and I mean, he's got a plus slider, but if he leaves that over the plate, then it's just gone. But that's the biggest crux in Malachi he was slated to be a midweek starter. He's not a weekend guy. He's not your Friday guy. And so in order to kind of bandage up whatever is left of this starting rotation for the weekends, I mean, that's their biggest hurdle they've got to clear. And it's just building guys up to capitalize and to really thrive in those weekend roles. And it just hasn't happened yet. The injury bug for the first time in a while has really hit Creighton hard, and it's showing its teeth in those weekend series in the Big East. In the midweek, it's like you're getting guys that are overperforming, and they're doing max effort throws, and I mean, they're running that ball up to 92 to 95 miles an hour, which they don't typically do. And so it's the effective pitching in the midweek that's really been their boon. And so their bust, obviously, is just that piecemeal quilt work of a rotation that they've got on the weekends, and it just hasn't really flourished or shined for them. And so to be able to get Cancieri back and to, maybe Cade Lummel has finally figured it out. I mean, he won Big East Pitcher of the Week, and he didn't even start any games. It was all in relief. He didn't allow a single run in relief in 8.1 innings pitched. So it's like, man, if they can rely on him a little bit more going, as they close out the season and maybe starting some weekend series, it's like maybe they got something there, but it remains to be seen. It's just the strangest phenomenon that we're seeing out of the Jays this year.
Alex, I'd be remiss if we don't talk about it, because kind of to your point about what would be headlines, Nolan Saylor's season is incredible, right? He leads them in stolen bases. He's flirting with 400. I told Ravi off air before the show started this morning. I mean, he'd have to go on a heater with so many ABs to move his batting average 8 points, or 9 or whatever. He's in 390 something. But I watched him in high school. He put Ralston back on the map in 2021. He was pressed into duty young. His average is up, 90 points since he started as a freshman. He can hit the rock, man, and he's a fantastic kid. Like, This is a heck of a story in conference with the numbers he's putting up statistically.
It truly is. And I mean, he's a grinder. He's so good. He's really patient at the plate.
Played with a bad hand at the
happen.
tail end of last year. Really strong. He's just a tough kid.
He really is. I mean, he is the entire team right now. I mean, he's carrying them on his back offensively, but defensively as well. I mean, he plays such a good center field. And Creighton has always had great center fielders, you know, going back to like Mike Gerber, who still flirts with the show at times. So, yeah, that's always been Creighton's bread and butter is, you know, the shortstop, second baseman defensive combo, you know, up the middle. But then the center fielder just being able to, you know, to navigate the wide, vast space of center field at Charles Schwab Field. He is everything that he is built to be. But he's such a clutch hitter, and he just gets on base, and he scores runs, and he lifts up his other guys around him. I mean, he's the dynamic guy that's in this lineup, and for good reason too. I mean, he was highly touted coming out of high school. You're right, out of Ralston, he was kind of like their best recruit, their best player that they were able to sign. You know, spurned Nebraska, goes to Creighton, and then he's finally showing out. And yeah, I think he's got big league potential written all over. It's going to be great. Once he gets up into that next rank. But, you know, I mean, you look at this Big East slate, and he's got to really come through as well. And I'd really love to see him in a regional, you know, with a little bit more of a spotlight on him, because I think he deserves that.
Good call.
That's Alex Sindelar, Creighton baseball analyst. Alex, we appreciate it. I'm sure we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, A.
We're kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, as well as KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are here on the Pillar Exterior stage, and we are brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook. Whether it's in Lincoln at the casino or at Horseman's Park here in Omaha, it's the best place to place your sports bets in the state of Nebraska. Keep your money on the right side of the river here. Now, I know at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, we're donating to both sides of the river, but when it comes to your gambling money, let's keep it here on the Nebraska side, because that's where you want your money to go. Plus, at Warhorse Sportsbook, you've got live bets, parlays, props, in-game, straight bets, whatever you can think of. You can bet on nearly every major sporting event, including coming up this weekend, Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, we'll talk with Big A on Friday.
So make sure you get out there, see what the lines are.
I should call my mom. That's who we should call. Give her a horse racing segment.
Always, absolutely. Let's get some bets.
She may freeze.
Although
she's pretty good on air.
I usually bet exclusively based on the names of horses' names I like.
It's kind of weird.
I do okay usually.
Do you?
Yeah.
Shocker.
You
these people, man.
Surprise, surprise.
Exactly.
But make sure you get out to Warhorse Sportsbook. If you got any questions, go to warhorsecasino.com/sportsbook for a full list of details and house rules. That's Warhorse Sportsbook. No bets, no glory. Yeah, I just go through the list of names, and the one, like, one will kind of like speak to me. I'm like, all right, I'm going with that one.
Ravi.
Surprise.
Ravi.
Surprise, surprise.
Speaking of surprises.
You better not.
No, I'm going to do something different. I'm not.
You surprised me.
Yeah, see.
Because if we had to go into Dion again, I was
Shane, do you have that graphic that I sent you?
Back in the day.
Oh, wasn't that interesting?
So yesterday on FS1, giving credit where credit's due. Why don't you toss it up on the stream there, Shane?
So who it was because I sent it to you.
Yeah, it was Nick Wright.
Yeah,
from FS1. The graphics up on the stream if you're watching live here.
Yeah.
He put together he calls it Mahomes Mountain. Really, it's a quarterback ranking pyramid. Obviously, Mahomes is at the top. That's fine. I don't have any problem with that. I do have some issues further down the pyramid.
So first of all, are you okay with how he says no one is close to Mahomes? So he left 2 vacant slots as he's building the pyramid.
I thought he was being dramatic, but I don't disagree in terms of, I think it is 1 pause and then 2, whoever you put it to.
Okay.
So I don't have a problem with it to visually create that, but I also think he's being dramatic.
Now, full disclosure for this pyramid, it was post-draft.
Yes.
That's the only,
So I think I think it's not really fair to include the draft guys in this because we have no idea.
Yeah, but that kind of defeats the whole purpose.
No, it does. You can rank quarterbacks at any time of the year. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Because here's why I say it doesn't make a ton of sense. You've got a guy that I obviously have an affinity for in Trevor Lawrence, an affinity for his talent, right?
Yes.
Who has not produced at a level that would be indicative of his talent. And the reason I bring that up is because you could have that with a Caleb Williams, who he puts above some guys that are dramatically more established, right? I mean, Jared Goff, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, like all of these guys have a track record of being successful NFL quarterbacks where we know for a fact that at least half the guys drafted are likely going to be non-NFL starters in last week's first round. So when I'm looking at this, I kind of get this sense that I want to test our perception versus the reality, because looking at this, it seems like Nick Wright went a lot on perception. I don't have a problem with CJ Stroud being high. I don't know that CJ Stroud today is better than Lamar Jackson. That's a take, right? I don't have a problem with Justin Herbert being pretty high. I don't know that Justin Herbert, who hasn't won a whole hell of a lot of anything in the NFL, is better than Jared Goff, who's been to a Super Bowl and kind of revitalized the Lions franchise. Like that's kind of a tough sell for me. And then maybe the toughest sell on the entire list is where Tua is.
So I mean, I'm looking at this, and when I sent it to you, this was one of those times. I mean, shocker, right? Surprise, surprise. I'm like arguing with the television.
Surprise, surprise. Surprise,
Because my initial, I go way to the bottom and I see Purdy and Rodgers, Baker's Cousins, Tua. Like, number one, how are take any of the 5 or 6 outside of Kyler, and I'll listen to Kyler Murray discussions, below Trevor Lawrence. Yeah. Just last year, how are they below Jalen Hurts?
That's totally fair. I don't have an answer.
So, okay, and here's the other thing. Go to the line above. How is Jared Goff below Caleb Williams?
Yeah, who's never taken a snap in the NFL before.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So maybe, and he is talking about this on the show, so it needs a little context. He's like, when these guys, he's assuming they reached their peak. But I'm telling you this, and this is amazing how it's changed. I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but do you know who has a critical year that is held in very, very high regard?
Josh Allen or Joe Burrow?
Joe Burrow.
Yeah. He needs to get it done.
Doesn't it seem like Burrow has to produce?
He gets the benefit of the doubt a lot. And
he's top 3 quarterbacks paid in the league.
And I love Burrow. I'm
Me
a Burrow
too.
guy.
I think we both picked him.
Yeah. I picked him as my 2 after Mahomes over Allen, over Herbert, over Lamar, because I love the way he plays the position. But you're right. He's been hurt a ton. And outside of the one Super Bowl year, hasn't really been the guy that we talk about.
And it just seems like, and it's this sounds crazy to say because I think we both are kind of in love with him. He gets a lot of, but his offensive line. I don't necessarily hear that about some of the other quarterbacks held in the same regard. It just seems like nationally, this is a big year for Burrow.
I think it has to be. I also I want to do.
By the way, are we just going to continue with the Jared Goff and Stafford slander? Like, you guys are going to get enough of that. And how's Kirk Cousins on the second to last line?
Yeah, unless the only thing I can figure out with Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers are injuries. Like, if he's put him there because of injuries and age, maybe.
Yeah,
that's the only argument there, because I went through this exercise, right? So I took everybody on the list that has stats, and I went through their stats. I've got it all written down here, and I want to throw some at you to see perception versus reality. Okay. So, for instance, if I've got a guy that wins 62% of his games, 67% completion, 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio, and 240 yards per game. But in the last 2 years, it's been 270 per game. That's one guy. Or
wait a second. Read them quick because I'm memorizing as I go. 60%, 2-to-1, 240 per, except for the last 2 years, it's been 270.
And 67% completion, 62% winner. Okay? Let's throw that against a guy. Win 67% of their games.
Okay.
63% completion, 240 yards per game, pretty consistently across their career. 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio.
What's the win percentage?
67 versus 62. The completions are 67 versus 63. It's almost flip-flopped. Everything else is almost identical.
Huh. What's the yards per game?
240 for the second guy, 240 for the first guy, but the second guy doesn't have the last 2-year bump of 270.
One of those guys sounds like golf.
Neither one is golf. But those two guys, would you say generally not hugely different guys?
No, statistically, yeah, they're because you're only talking about the difference between 1.5 wins in 17 games.
Yeah. So you're talking about 13 versus 11.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there, on a given
on
year,
average, yeah.
13 versus 12, whatever. Basically the same guy. Those guys are they were at least 2 tiers apart. You want to know who they are?
Yeah, this ought to be good.
First guy's Tua. The second guy is Josh Allen.
The Tua slander is
aggressive,
kind of reckless.
It really is. He was really good the last couple of years.
It's kind of reckless.
He threw a little more interceptions last year.
Yeah.
But you're still talking about, I think it was a 54-22 ratio the last 2 years. So even better than his career ratio. And now, and listen, it lines up with Tyreek getting on the scene. I get that. But for there to be that level of, and I don't think that's just a Nick Wright thing, right?
No, it's the perception. You're right.
The perception of Tua versus Josh Allen is enormously different to the degree of, like, it doesn't really make sense. Josh Allen, we give the benefit of the doubt to like crazy. And maybe it's because of how it looks.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because of how he looks. He's this big, physical, imposing guy. But, man, not a whole lot difference production-wise.
Interesting.
I got another one for you.
All right.
Okay?
Gosh, I wasn't even close.
Because I like doing this.
Shane.
I have a good time with it.
Help me.
Okay.
HBO.
Yes,
help a brother out.
So, wins 55% of their games.
Ooh.
68% completion. 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. 270 yards per game. That's guy number 1. Okay?
That's Cousins.
That's guy number 1.
Okay.
Might
not be.
Guy number 2.
Okay.
Which guy? Let's do which one's more fun?
I'm already like
okay. No, let's do this. Okay.
55%
wins. Second guy wins 52% of their games.
Eesh.
67% completion. 2.5-to-1 touchdown to interception.
Okay.
260 yards per game.
So similar TDs.
Almost.
They're the same. They're kind of the same quarterback.
Almost identical.
3-to-1 and 2.5-to-1
are both really good.
It's pretty good.
Both really good. Both high 60s completion.
Do they have bad defenses? Why don't they win more?
Well, you'll figure out here in a second. 260 to 270 yards per game.
And it's
close.
55% to 52%.
Yeah, in the same neighborhood. Just over 50% of their games they win.
Oh, that's amazing for the turnover ratio. I'll go with. I have to look at the quarterbacks again because
Shane, can you keep that pyramid up for a second for me?
Because that is brutal. I will go with. That's such a low win percentage.
It is. That's why I picked these two guys.
How about Deshaun Watson and Caleb Love?
So Deshaun Watson has very similar numbers to almost identical to the second guy.
Okay.
The second guy was Kirk Cousins.
2.5 to 1.
The second guy was Kirk Cousins, 2.5 to 1. The first guy was Joe Burrow.
It's unbelievable.
So the perception,
but it's not though, because Cousin, like that turn, he doesn't win very much.
And neither has Burrow yet.
So who was the 52%er? Cousins?
That was Cousins, just slightly below Burrow at 55. But how did we both take Burrow as our second best guy.
But you know what's funny though? I'm not here for the Kirk Cousins slander.
But you would never put him in the same category as Burrow.
No, but I was the guy. That's fun. That's funny. So now I feel like I have more ammo.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I'm like, he's top 11, 12 at worst. And we hate on this guy.
Deshaun Watson, by the way, almost identical to both of those guys.
It sounded like Watson in my head.
He's almost identical. Let's go some.
Okay, what's Caleb Love? Because we're assuming
Jordan Love.
Did I say Caleb Love?
Yeah, it's a different guy.
And I should know because my disdain has grown immensely for that guy. What is Jordan Love statistically? Because you know what's interesting?
Mm-hmm.
I think we're penciling him in as having a pretty good year. And it was the second half of last year that's got us.
And it's a really small sample size.
That's what I'm saying.
So I'm going to give you two guys.
And we're talking about this dude breaking the bank.
One of them will be Jordan Love.
Okay.
The other one will not.
Okay.
I'm going to pick another guy. I'm not gonna tell you the other qualifier. Okay. So one guy has won 80% of their starts.
Jeez.
69% completion.
80.
3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. And 270 yards per game.
80%?
80%.
It's got to be Mahomes.
The second guy wins 52% of their games. 64% completion, 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, 245 yards per game.
What was the Packers' record last year? Love starts. Did he get to 80 with a small sample size? That seems high. But I know one of them's Love.
One of them is Love.
It's got to be the 80%er then.
It is not. They went 9-8 last year in his start, or 9-6 in his starts.
And he was healthy for
most of
all of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other guy's Brock Purdy. He's won 80.
Purdy wins 80% of his games.
He wins 80% of his games.
And 3-to-1?
At a 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio.
That's insane.
Almost 70% completion.
That's insane.
Now, I will say, for him, I only took last year's yards per game because he only started 5 games in the year before.
So that probably comes down to like 255-ish.
So, no, because in his first year, he hardly threw the ball at all. It was only 150 in year one over 5 games. So his career average comes down to like 230. But I thought last year was more representative. So I left the.
He's an 80%.
80%. He's 17-4 as a starter. 17-4.
Huh.
You want to do a fun one? I've got a fun one for you. I almost did Purdy and Mahomes together.
Yeah.
But I wanted to do small sample sizes.
Like Travis said, where are the Steelers quarterbacks on here?
Not to be found.
Yeah, I know.
They did not make the pyramid.
If you're looking at that list, you got 32 teams. You got 25, and then you got.
It's sad, isn't it?
You got two guys on the same team there, so you got 25 guys up there. If you're one of the 7 teams that doesn't have a quarterback on that list,
so
are you in trouble?
Denver, Tennessee, Pittsburgh,
Raiders.
First blush, Raiders.
I've got a good one for you.
Are those teams in trouble? I mean, if you're not on the Mahomes mountain,
I don't think the Steelers are in trouble. I don't think the Raiders are in trouble.
I don't
trouble
know.
is hard. Like, what's trouble?
I mean, you got to have a quarterback. And
yeah, you do. You do. Raiders have a good roster. Well, them and the Steelers have a good roster. Denver may be in trouble.
Well, that's good.
They got Bo Nix.
Wow. Let the hate flow.
Is he in the hotel?
Where's the dude with the wrinkly face and the black hood? That's the Emperor, right?
Yeah, that's the Emperor.
So I'm going to give you another one here.
Doesn't he need to let the hate flow?
Let the hate flow.
Or whatever
Just do it.
Just do what must be done. Mean-spirited little son of a gun, Mr. Compassion.
Always. I said off air. I'm different. Let me get these. Okay, so we're doing perception versus reality on NFL quarterbacks here. If you're following along in the stream, you'll be able to see the QB pyramid that Nick Wright put out yesterday on FS1 that kind of got us thinking here. Let me give you this one here, okay?
Okay.
64% of their games, 67% completion, 3-1 touchdown to interception, 260 yards per game. So pretty good. As opposed to win 66% of their games, 65% completion. Now this number is crazy. 4.5 to 1 touchdown to interception ratio, 255 yards per game.
The only guy that I could think that would have that good of a TDI to interception ratio has to be Aaron Rodgers.
That is Aaron Rodgers. Do you know who the other guy is who's pretty close in everything but that?
What was the other guy's win percentage?
64.
And his touchdowns?
3 to 1.
Still really good.
260 yards per game. Still really good.
4.5 to 1 is absolutely ludicrous.
Especially over his sample size. Because I know,
16 years
yeah.
or whatever.
The only guy that's close to him is CJ Stroud in 1 year at 4 to 1.
I mean,
He's the only guy that
was the giveaway for me.
Yes. I knew, and I didn't even want to put it in there because I knew as soon as I said, because he's the only guy. You don't want to know who the other guy is?
Oh.
Who's close in everything and still has a really good touchdown interception ratio? It's Dak Prescott. A guy that nobody thinks much of.
Yeah, so that was where I last heard you and Apostrophe talking about would Bears fans take Dak Prescott?
Yeah. If you would you take those numbers from Caleb Williams? Not style of play, not anything like that.
Yeah.
Just production.
As a rookie, you 100% would.
Would you? I mean, for a career. If he wins 65% of his games.
Yep, you take it.
Completes high 60s completion percentage.
You take it.
3 to 1 touchdown interception. 260 yards per game. You should take that, right?
Yeah.
But when I attach a name to it, I go, hey, Bears fans, you just drafted Dak Prescott. How do you feel? They all lose their minds, right? Nobody's happy.
Dude,
nobody's happy.
10-7 is 58%.
Yeah, so you're talking about going 11-6 every year, basically. You would take that.
Yeah.
Every day that ends in Y.
I absolutely would.
You have to.
Because 11-6 is 64%. I would do that.
Yeah.
11-6 puts me in position to go to the playoffs every year.
Single year. Anything over 60% win percentage, you got a pretty good shot of being in the playoffs.
So are we here or not here for Dak Prescott slander? Because it seems like he has been the popular whipping boy.
I'm not here for the slander. I don't think
he's not 50 million though.
No, that's where people get upset about Cousins or Prescott.
But you can't be disingenuous though, because you have to pay if he's what you'll take every single year, then you have to pay the going business.
Yes,
going business rate.
It's the cost of doing business, right? It just is. It's the cost of doing business, and because if you're Dallas, your chances of drafting his production
is extremely low.
Are minuscule.
Extremely low.
It's so small. Just for funds here, can you guess Mahomes's numbers? So I'm not going to give them to you. Guess his win percentage, completion percentage, touchdown interception ratio, yards per game.
All right, this is crazy.
Because you're pretty good at this. So I want to see.
Yeah,
I just want to see what your perception of him would be.
Okay, I think his touchdowns to interceptions ratio is probably 3 to 1. Touchdown! I think his win percentage.
He wins a lot of games.
I know. His win percentage is 83%. Completion percentage. Gosh, this is tricky with drops.
Mm-hmm.
I'll still give him 70.
Okay.
He completed a lot of passes last year at 5 yards.
I'm going to tell you, nobody on this list is at 70. Brock Purdy's the highest at 69.
So he's got to be next, or at least close.
He's close.
Goff is high.
Burrow's high. There's a lot of like 66 to 69s in there.
All right. What's Mahomes' completion percentage?
66.
Okay. What's the win percentage?
70.
That's it?
Yeah. But think about what we just said. 64% is 11-6.
I know.
So like,
we're gonna do this thing again. We'll keep this thing.
That's it.
70% is 70% is bonkers.
And he usually plays an extra game or two.
Yes, he does.
Or 3
occasionally. But he wins most of those, to be fair. 3.5 to 1 touchdown interception.
That's incredible.
3.5 to 1 touchdown interception. By far the highest yards per game on the list at 296. He's the highest by about almost 30 yards.
And he's clutch.
Well, yeah, he's not bad there either.
Gosh.
Yeah, he's
what
okay.
What a sick,
Ridiculous
sick talent.
You know what you take away from this, though? Brock Purdy, better than you think.
Well, Cousins, too, for that matter.
Cousins, Dak.
A couple of those guys.
A lot of these guys, better than you think.
Interesting.
And some of these guys, maybe not as good as we think.
Mm.
That's DB. I'm Ravi. We've got more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. We're on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or you can see us live. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. You also could have seen us live the other day when we went out to Lawrence and Gardens. We were checking out the Brick Live Brickosaurs exhibit. You can too from now until May 12th. We're coming up on it here. You're running out of time, about a week and a half left before this exhibit goes extinct. But we've got 30 iconic dinosaur sculptures made from more than 1.5 million bricks. Still think that's low. Still think that number's low. I know we saw it for ourselves. I saw the breakdown. Still feels low. I'm just going to say it. But you can discover not only these great dinosaur sculptures, but the prehistoric plants that they would have actually lived around and with when they were alive. It's a super cool exhibit over at Lawrence and Gardens. Fun for the whole family. Go to lawrenceandgardens.org to get your tickets, and you will have a dynamite time.
I'll take it.
I guarantee it.
We
sure did.
I see what you did there.
You know, I like to have a good time.
JJ.
Dynamite.
I'm sure glad Daddy's all right.
Surprise, surprise.
Let's get into a position we've talked a little bit about here regarding Nebraska in the last few days, especially.
It's coming up. Don't forget Ben McLaughlin.
Oh yeah, coming up at 9:45
to talk Nebraska baseball.
Yeah, we got the Creighton side of it with our guy Alex Sindelar. We're gonna, as
the collective eye rolls here locally it's like it's always the J side.
Yeah, now we got both.
And it's hard for me to say this out loud, but I don't know what other perspective to paint sometimes when they're winning.
Yeah. Also, it's not like we don't talk to 18 Husker guests a week.
Oh, I detect a little note of that's a little terse.
I'm just saying.
I want you to clean up that delivery over there.
I delivered it how I meant to.
If I have to move off camera, it's because I'm extremely far away.
No, I want to do a little one of our position breakdowns on the tight end room.
Yep.
Right? Because we talked about them a little bit over the last few days after Fedoni had a nice spring game. Borkacher had at least that one really nice catch from Harburg as well. But this is a position group that I think you like a lot. I think that.
Why do you think I like it? I'm curious.
Because you love Lindemeyer.
Listen.
Am I wrong?
I love Borkacher.
I love listening.
I like Luke a lot.
Okay.
It's only so much love to go around. I love Borkacher.
Okay, so you love Borkacher. You really like Luke Lindemeyer.
And I'm all in on Fedoni because he's probably like top 5 guys I would take off that team if I had to win something.
Yes.
Right?
Like he's a little surly.
If I have to go play ping pong, if we're gonna go shoot baskets in a waste paper can, like Fedoni's top. He
could hoop a little bit back in the day too.
I'm going to get that guy.
Yeah, and
you know what? He's a lot like you, except he means it. He talks reckless.
Sometimes I mean it.
He's just not having it. Like he's just not. He revs high.
He revs super high
constantly. So probably 5 times last year getting on the bus,
mm-hmm.
or if I see him standing, because he's always with his parents, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
I think he gets a lot of it from his dad. I don't even look at his dad sideways. Sometimes I'm just like, ooh,
sir,
probably got to be in that one for the long haul. You know, a guy, if you fight once, you got to fight every day.
Yeah,
he seems like he'd be that guy.
You're like, I don't have the energy for it.
Almost every other game, I pat him on the butt and I said, hey man, I'd play with you any day of the week because it just means so much to him.
Yep. You can tell it kind of like oozes out of him, the competitiveness.
And sometimes he says some things to fans and media and stuff, and it's like I give him some grace because he's taking it.
Yeah.
he has.
People got after him while he was injured.
I mean, he has. And rehab sucks.
Yeah,
it's like the loneliest place in the U.S. And it's
doing it 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
Where you're all by yourself.
Yep.
Getting the work in. And honestly, the amount of respect I have for people who come back from those types of injuries and come back. I don't know if he's better, but he's not any worse.
He's better.
And he's definitely
he's a lot more complete.
He's definitely bigger.
Yeah.
And I don't think he lost any athleticism in the process. But to have you want to talk about guys that don't need babysat, right? Because you have to do a lot of that stuff on your own.
Yep.
Right? Like they'll give you the program, they'll tell you what you need to do, they'll be there for you to whatever. I don't know exactly how it works at Nebraska because I haven't gone through it. But in general, you're not a lot of hand holding in rehab. A lot of that's on you. And in order to have that mental capacity and the physical capacity to put yourself through that, not once, but twice in a row before you even get to have a taste of what college football is about, hats off to you, young man. Like, that's going through it. And I appreciate that about him. And I can understand how it makes you a little surly.
Yeah.
It makes you a little edgy. But is it crazy? Because you kind of mentioned this in passing about Fedoni. How he kind of reminds you of Rule.
Yeah, he does.
And Rule said, hey, I was kind of a tough kid. I was kind of a bad kid in high school and college a little bit. Like, I'm not saying that Fedoni's a bad kid.
Yeah.
But he's probably a little rougher around the edges in terms of presentation than Rule is at this point. It kind of reminds us, like, are we just kind of getting a little, like, if Rule was a physical freak of nature, he'd be a lot like Thomas Fedoni.
So I love the fact that you posed it to me that way, because when he first got here and players that he was kind of gravitating towards and what was going on, Fedoni seemed to come up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And, they would talk about kind of managing his schedule and brace, no brace. And I just stopped one day at a workout or practice or something. I'm like, you guys kind of sound a lot alike. And he's like, 100%. That's why we see it. I get Thomas.
He can ride with that guy.
I get Thomas.
Yeah.
Right. And you heard him. What did he say in the presser the other day? Like, it just matters to him so much, and he's loyal.
He's never happy. And I don't mean that. I think never satisfied is what he meant. Right. Not that he doesn't feel joy, but because there's a difference, right?
And I looked at you and I go, "Whoa, who does that sound like?"
Right? Because there's a difference. I know people that are never happy, and those people are miserable to be around. I know people that are never satisfied, and those are the people I want to be around because they're going to make me better, right? I want
I like the room quite a bit.
Yes, and you've got some guys coming in,
and
I
like the fact that the guy that everybody gave a hard time to is their coach, because he gives 2 cares. And I think that's how you have to be.
Oh yeah, I think there's a really good mentality from the position coach in that room that kind of permeates. It seems very fitting for a tight end room because you're not going to get a ton of flowers in that room.
Yep.
You're going to do a lot of dirty work to, seal an edge so a running back can get outside.
And everybody's kind of better right now, right? Like Thomas is catching the ball better. He's moving around.
He's cutting
better.
upfield a little better. Did you see that? Was where
Borkature is like developing into a. He's got a little more wide receiver to him
catcher.
Now. Lindemeyer, better inline blocker. Like, doesn't mind it being pretty messy and kind of dark in there. And
then you got a couple guys that are like physically really impressive coming in Ingerson. Who's huge.
Yeah. we were at the same place for prom.
Yeah.
Taking pictures. And
he's a giant.
I told you about leaving the scrimmage a couple weeks ago on Saturday. And he flexed and he is, you feel that? I'm like, this dude is nuts. But he was suited and booted.
Yeah.
Over at Champion a couple Saturdays ago. And he comes over. He's got a big barrel chest. He's just like towering over me.
He's a giant.
He's like, how do I clean up?
What's happening? I'm not saying
this dude is crazy.
I'm not saying he's going to be this guy, but physically he profiles to one of those like Gronk tight ends. That's the physical profile.
You want to know? I always pick a reason to cheer for somebody.
Yeah.
You know why I cheer for him?
Why is that?
Because nobody brings him up.
Yeah.
And
people forget about him.
And he couldn't care less.
He's a giant human being who had other Power 5 offers, was committed to a different Power 5 school, decided he wanted to be a part of this. And then you've got one of the better athletes probably in the class, and Carter Nelson.
He just usually makes me laugh.
Yeah, you're a big Ingerson guy. I like it.
I am.
So that's the tight end room. We're pretty high on the tight end room. I like it. I like that you've got some security blankets for young quarterbacks.
And we heard Coach Rule talk about in cuts, intermediate routes.
You got
not just for wideouts, right?
Got to be able to win the middle of the field.
How many times they go empty or in a 2x2, and one of the bigger bodies was in the slot?
Absolutely. You got to be able to win the middle of that field. Speaking of Coach Rule, he's going to be on the show tomorrow.
Yeah.
9 a.m. Make sure you tune in. We will.
Don't you dare miss Coach Rule.
Yeah, we will promote a little bit on social media as well. So make sure you're following all the Hurrdat Sports and Hail Varsity accounts. But wanted to make sure you guys knew Coach Rule is going to be on in this hour tomorrow, Thursday, 9 a.m. Don't miss it. Coming up next, Ben Mclaughlin from Husker Radio Network. We're wrapping up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, on the Pillar Exterior stage. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. One last reminder before we get to Ben Mclaughlin here. Both locations of Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill today, Wednesday, will be donating all proceeds from all sales at both restaurants, La Vista and Gretna location, to the Nebraska and Iowa Red Cross to assist in tornado relief to all the victims of the storms last week. That's all day today. Make sure you come out here, get yourself some lunch, maybe come grab some dinner as well. And all of those proceeds at both locations will be going to the Nebraska and Iowa Red Cross to help with disaster relief. So make sure you get out to Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill today. Joining us now as we wrap up the day here on Hurrdat Sports Radio is Ben Mclaughlin of the Husker Radio Network. Ben, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
Benny Mac, get used to it, buddy. All right, so you go ahead and get geared up. Plus, here's the cool thing, B Mac. You're sitting next to or talking with a couple of NBA nerds too, and Ravi has no idea what a closet NBA fan you have. Maybe not so closet.
Well, I don't talk a lot of NBA with my friends because nobody else likes it but me. So I just sit
yeah, we can just exchange late night texts about the Hornets and some other the Rockets and some other miscellaneous teams.
I mean, you got a problem when it's game 72 and you're excited that Davis Bertans goes 7 of 9 from downtown and the Hornets end up only losing by 24.
You got to explain to Ravi real quick, why a Hornets fan?
Yeah, I gotta know. Is it the starter jackets from the 90s?
That was the first telltale.
Because those were the best.
Obviously, the exposure to Space Jam when you got Muggsy Bogues and Johnson on there.
Absolutely. I was a big Larry Johnson guy.
But for me, it was Kemba Walker. I loved watching Kemba play in college. And, of course, he gets drafted by really the one franchise that refuses to understand how to operate. And so once he took off for greener pastures, for some reason I decided to stick with him. So here we are.
So now you're just stuck with LaMelo.
Yeah, and his ankles.
Kind of runs in the family a little bit with I'm starting to think those shoes that Dad made weren't that great.
Oh, that's tough. So B-Mac, you gotta help us through here, right? Before we preview K-State, what do you see being so close to these guys and traveling with them that happens in midweeks? Like, we're trending way in the wrong direction, and it's not simply because they don't care.
Yeah, I think if I had an answer for you, I'd be hired, right? I mean, I think the coaches are still kind of perplexed. And I think, Damon, this following baseball, every game is a little bit different, but when it's so continuous, you have to look for themes. What is the theme in each of these games? And that's been the perplexing thing about this year, maybe more than last year, is how the games have happened. Like, we've seen well-pitched games in the midweek at times. We have seen bad pitched midweek games at times. A 13-11 game to Kansas. Obviously, last night, the start in the first inning, the defense really let Nebraska down, and that led to 4 straight 2-out hits for Creighton. But I think it really just boils down to pitching depth. I mean, this coaching staff really wants to have a bona fide midweek starter. And I think some of the unique circumstances around where Nebraska is with their rotation, not only in the weekend, but in the midweek has allowed them to really struggle Whereas you look at like how a team like Creighton is built, and they have a lot of guys on their roster that they're comfortable throw 2 to 3 innings. And that is perfect for the midweeks. But that's not a good recipe for the weekends. And I think their record directly shows that.
Yeah. Were you encouraged last night with Clark? I mean, he's starting to put together some outings, enough to build on.
Yeah, there's a few in a row now, Damon. I think that's starting to get him going the right way. First of all, the thing you got to understand about Caleb Clark is he's Canadian, so he is the nicest kid ever, and so he is an easy one to root for. And we got a few of them on the team that are that way. And so whenever he's out there, you're really pulling for him to do well. And he's strung 4 or 5 of these outings in a row now to where he's really looked competitive. And it really just starts with the Pitt's execution. There's a difference between throwing strikes and throwing competitive strikes. And he's starting to throw more of the latter, particularly with the left-on-left changeup and the breaking ball of the right-handed hitters. So when he can get those things working, he's really effective. And he's an uber competitive guy too. So when you start throwing all these things together, and you start to build off some of these outings to where he exits feeling good, he's just really confident. And I think the coaches still have a lot of confidence in him to get the job done.
Ben, as Nebraska has kind of these back-to-back midweek games, what are you hoping to see tonight against Kansas State that maybe we didn't see yesterday against Creighton?
I want to see Nebraska get an early lead and hold it is what I want to see. I mean, you felt really good about the top of the first inning yesterday, getting back-to-back doubles and, getting the first run on the board, but then the bottom of the first inning happened. And that was, for all intents and purposes, the game. Kansas State is a team that has a lot of electricity in the back end of their bullpen. Guys that throw, in the upper 90s, even will touch triple digits, not dissimilar to what we saw from KU. So if you get behind, you're staring down the barrel of, another potential midweek loss. So I really want to see Nebraska get out to an early lead and cut down the strikeout numbers. To me, it's 2 games in a row. Sunday's passable because you're going against Brecht, who's maybe the most electric arm in college baseball when he's throwing strikes.
Yeah.
But way too many swings and misses yesterday. So I want to see Nebraska on the barrel, on attack, and be the aggressor. And when they do that, they're a really hard offense to stop.
When you're looking at the level of importance in this game, whether it's momentum or for a decent, contribution with RPI and Nolan, how does it stack up against the importance of this weekend, though?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're all important from here on out.
Yeah.
I mean, this game will ruin you emotionally. I mean, Damon, you know this. Baseball is a game that will turn a high school prom king into a jealous type. Like, it just ruins you mentally if you let it. And so Nebraska really needs to, get things figured out to where they can show up to the park with a short memory with what happened, good or bad, the day before, and go perform at a high level, because you're getting to the part of the year now with just 3 weekends left of the regular season to where there's not a lot of wiggle room for wavering in emotion or confidence. You've got to be where you need to be, showing up to the yard, and not let, 3 losses to Creighton in a month or whatever the situation may be affect how you approach your business the next day. Because, as you know, once postseason gets here, there's no margin for error. And that's kind of where we're at right now. And then you throw in the fact that they're right at the top of the Big Ten standings trying to chase down a league championship. So every game from here on out matters.
Ben, you mentioned just the 3 weekend series left. Nebraska still in pretty good shape with the RPI and things like that. What would you like to see from them in terms of how they're playing down the stretch to feel somewhat good about heading into postseason?
Yeah, I think and we're starting to get there a little bit. Damon mentioned Caleb Clark, and that's starting to get maybe the bullpen a little bit more consistent. I think you could handpick maybe 3 guys right now that you're really confident in when you put the ball in their hand at the end of the game. I know he got hit around for a home run yesterday, but I feel really good anytime Jalen Worthley, Kyle Freilich, or Casey Dice are in the game. That's great, but you need more than that. And if Nebraska can somehow find a way to land on a Sunday starter, whether it be Will Walsh or Drew Christo or somebody else, you feel really good about a tournament setting, because a lot of times that comes down to who has the deepest pitching staffs. And I feel like Nebraska has 7 or 8 guys that have flashed this year, but it just hasn't been for long enough stretches. So that's what I'm hoping to see these last 3 weeks, is some guys really get confident to where, you're playing at Charles Schwab in the Big Ten tournament. You're feeling really good about what you have depth-wise. Even if you were to drop a game, you can climb out of that loser's bracket and find a way to make it to the championship.
All right, we're going to take advantage of you being so closely connected to Nebraska sports, BMAC.
Yeah, Ben, I want to switch gears and get to basketball here a little bit for a second because Nebraska has really overhauled their roster, including a commitment from Mia from Washington yesterday as a big. How have you, I guess, how have you processed the guys they've brought in versus the guys they've lost and what that looks like moving forward for Hoiberg?
Well, I think you use that word. It's processed, right? I mean, you try and figure out, okay, what you lost, what you're trying to replace. Is it plug and play? Do they have a different vision with how Coach Hoiberg wants to run his offense? I could drive myself crazy thinking about it, but at the end of the day, I have trust in Fred Hoiberg. I mean, what we have to understand is he was building rosters like this through transfers before it was cool, like before everybody was doing it. So he has a process down. He's a great evaluator of talent, but not just talent, but more of how players fit what he wants to do. A player that he likes might not be a player that another team likes. And I think that's the benefit in the portal days when everyone's competing for the same players. You have to have a different eye for something that maybe somebody else doesn't see. And, bringing in these parts, I mean, Raleigh Worcester, first of all, first team name All-American. That's amazing. I really like the
Pavelko will have he'll have fun with that one.
He sure will, yeah. Bringing in Griffiths, I think that's a much better fit for him than what he had at Rutgers.
Yeah.
And then obviously, I'm almost like Ricky Bobby. I don't know what to do with my hands getting a 7-footer transfer. That doesn't happen to Nebraska. So it's been a pretty good few weeks. I'm interested to see what the product looks like on the floor. I know it was a tough week there for a while with all the departures, but I don't know that the coaches were overly surprised in any of them.
Hey, Mac, it's almost like you talk for a living, man. Get used to it talking
sometimes.
to us.
I appreciate it, guys. This is fun.
You got it, B.
Ben, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon.
Sounds good, guys. Have a good one.
That's Ben Mclaughlin from the Husker Sports Radio Network. I don't know how we got hooked up with him.
He's a funny dude.
All these
man.
Husker Sports Radio Network guys all over got you, got Cootie, got Ben,
Coatney.
We
talked to
Cody,
Sharp.
we got to talk to Kent.
Oh, and tomorrow we get the big fish.
Yeah, we get all big happy family here. But tomorrow, as you alluded to, we've got Coach Matt Rule at 9 a.m. tomorrow. But just listen to the whole show. It's going to be good.
Yeah.
But the head man, Coach Rule, will be on tomorrow morning here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Yeah.